Chapter 281 Celebrating the Spirit. Part 4. After obtaining the map, the Moon Angel quickly headed towards the Qing family's 10 tigers after breaking through to the 6th level of the Cave Heaven realm. The 10 tigers represent 10 promising young talents. Qing Feng, being only 20 years old and possessing only the 1st level of the Grotto Heaven realm, was eliminated. Therefore, this one is definitely more powerful than Qing Feng. According to Qiu Lin, he is Qing Feng's half-brother and ranks last among the 10 tigers. Although he is the last, he is still much stronger than Qing Feng's young master because he was not abandoned. The Moon Angel's journey there was quite serious. After all, she was one of the so-called 10 tigers, and her strength was limited as she had only recently entered Hanuishan. If they can't win and can't get the world coordinates, the Moon Angel will have to think of other ways. I will definitely get it, the Moon Angel said firmly. She crossed the border and traveled 100,000 miles away, where she found the young master of the Qing family, Qingling. This Qingling's dojo is located here, in a majestic mountain range with countless spiritual mines to be mined. He manages the Qing family's businesses here. The mine was bustling with workers, who were constantly mining. Countless mountains were hollowed out, and countless earth veins were extracted. Truckloads of raw materials and unrefined spiritual veins were transported out and ended up in the hands of this Qingling. He kept a portion for himself and handed over the rest, making a considerable profit. The Moon Angel arrived here without revealing herself, and instead infiltrated a picturesque manor located on the side of the mine. Next door was a mine shrouded in thick smoke and constant noise. This is a beautiful and livable place with clear waters and lush mountains. The manor is magnificent, with servants coming and going, and it is very luxurious. This creates a stark contrast. The Moon Angel sneaked in, hiding in the shadows, and overheard the servants talking. Whom has young Master Qingling invited as a guest today? I heard he is a distinguished guest. Distinguished guest? Could he be as distinguished as young Master Qingling? You can't say that carelessly. Young Master Qingling is very valuable, but the other party is no less so. I've heard that they come from an imperial family on the moon. An imperial family on the moon? The servant exclaimed, looking at his companion in surprise. Now you know how expensive it is, right? Take good care of her. You're so beautiful that if someone takes a fancy to you, even if it's just for one night and you get pregnant, you'll still be winning. Her companion reached out and touched her delicate face. The servant said shyly, "How annoying." Upon hearing this, the Moon Angel left, too lazy to listen to the rest of her infatuated ramblings. The Qin family of the Moon Palace has arrived. The Moon Angel was surprised, not expecting to encounter the Qin family of the Moon Palace so soon after entering the cold moon heaven. She was a member of her former family. But you've come at the right time. Help me keep Qingling occupied while I go find the world coordinates, Moon Angel thought coldly. She had absolutely no intention of meeting this person from the Qin family of the Moon Palace. She didn't even bother to find out who the other person was. The villa was brightly lit and bustling with activity in the front yard because of the guests. Everyone was there. The backyard was rather deserted, which made it easier for the Moon Angels to carry out their duties. World coordinates are useless. They're only good for location tracking, so it's impossible for them to be on someone's person. They must be in Qingling's room, the Moon Angel affirmed. Because world coordinates are only used for constructing teleportation arrays and helping people locate themselves, they are not very useful for anything else. They are not commonly used magical artifacts. People may carry them on their person, but most likely they will keep them in their own rooms. Squeak. The Moon Angel pushed open Qingling's door, and sure enough, in the dimly lit room, there was a light source milky white, illuminating the room. This is the world coordinate system. It was placed on the table in the room. Very simple. The Moon Angel opened the door, went in, picked up the world coordinates, and then inscribed a restriction to cross the void before leaving. How dare you, you petty thief, steal from the young master of the Qing family's room? Who knew that the next second, a loud shout rang out, accompanied by a dazzling silver light that shot over and slammed into the Moon Angel's void-crossing formation. The Moon Angel swiftly retreated, unleashing a backhand strike that emitted a burst of cold moonlight. The moon wheel appeared in her hand. She quickly pulled it open, and then suddenly slashed it away. Die! Moon Angel didn't want to waste words with the other party. The fight had already caused a commotion, and those ahead would definitely notice. Every second she delayed meant a second of danger for her. So he directly took out the immortal artifact Moon Wheel to meet the enemy. The Moon Wheel was extremely powerful and invincible. With a fierce slash, the sharp edge of the immortal artifact caught the enemy off guard and directly cut off the man's arm. Not good. The man was also alert. His arm was severed by the Moon Wheel in a single blow. He quickly retreated, enduring the pain, and shouted, "Help! There's an assassin!" Moon Angel remained calm. She knew that the other party's cultivation was no less than her own. The reason she could cut off his arm so easily was that the other party had not noticed that she had a celestial artifact. With the sharpness of the celestial artifact, she was able to take him by surprise and cut off his arm. She can't afford to linger. The time it took to inscribe the restriction was so long, even though it usually only took 5 seconds to inscribe the restriction that allowed him to traverse the void. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Dao patterns spread and continued to outline, and a complex 6-pointed star restriction was about to appear. However, accidents always happen at crucial moments. Boom. How dare you steal my treasures and injure my steward? You're courting death. A young man with blonde hair and a cold face wielded a long halberd and brought it down hard. He launched this attack from the distant front yard. The halberd was clearly a valuable magical artifact with immense power. This attack struck the barrier, shattering the Moon Angel's barrier once again at the last moment. Moon Angel's eyes turned cold. This was forcing her into a bloody battle. Thump. With his golden hair flowing down his back, Qingling, carrying a long halberd, leaped over and crashed to the ground. His imposing presence was undisguised, revealing him to be from the 9 Heavens cave. At 20 years old, one reaches the 9 Heavens. This level is incredible even for those in the cold moon heaven. It is the bloodline of an emperor from an imperial family, and ordinary people cannot cultivate to this level. Who are you? Qingling looked at Yu Tianxia coldly, a flash of amazement in his eyes. He hadn't expected that the thief would be such a beautiful woman, but in an instant, he looked at her coldly. So what if she's beautiful? Men should do men. Things that need to be done. Career, self-cultivation, and power are what a man should control. Women, once you have these, will you still lack women? Qi knew. At this moment, a surprised exclamation came, and a handsome young man looked at the Moon Angel in disbelief. He recognized the Moon Angel. The Moon Angel glanced at the person and immediately knew who it was. Qin Kuan, the son of the Qin family of the Moon Palace in this generation. He was also one of her childhood admirers, often saying he wanted Qin Yu to be his wife. However, after being beaten up a few times by his father, who was the clan chief, he stopped saying it. But it's true that he lusts after Qin Yu's body. The Moon Angel stared coldly at Qin Kuan and said, "My name is Ursula. I am the Moon Angel, not the Qin Yu you speak of." Chapter 282 The Power of Immortal Artifacts. Part 5. Qin Kuan shook his head, not believing Yu Tianxia's words, and said anxiously, "You are clearly Qin Yu. Although you have become more charming, have a better figure, and outstanding temperament, these are all due to growing up. You are still Qin Yu, my little sister Yu." Moon Angel's expressionless face twitched involuntarily. She really wanted to hit someone. Qin Kuan, that playboy, and he called himself Sister Moon, ugh. Qingling frowned and asked, "Is this someone from your Qin family?" If it were someone from the Qin family, he would find it harder to make a move. The Qin family of the Moon Palace is no weaker than the Qing family. Both are imperial families, both have produced emperors, and both have a high concentration of bloodline. Qin Kuan was about to speak and agree, but the Moon Angel coldly said, "I am the Moon Angel Ursula, not a member of the Qin family." Qingling narrowed his eyes, looking at Qin Kuan with a half smile and said, "Brother Qin Kuan, what do you have to say?" Qin Kuan said anxiously, "Sister Yu, why won't you admit that you are a member of the Qin family? If you admit it, I can beg Brother Qingling to let you go." "Let me go?" Moon Angel sneered. "I'm quite curious to know just how sharp the teeth of the 10th tiger of the Imperial family are." Moon Angel narrowed her eyes. With the moon wheel in her hand, she dared to fight Qingling, who was only at the 9th level of the heavenly realm, even if he were at the 10th level. Qin Kuan frowned and said anxiously, "Brother Qingling, my sister Yu has some grudges with the Qin family and is still angry. She's just talking nonsense. She was a martyr for my Qin family before." Qingling looked at Qin Kuan with a half smile and said, "Brother Qin Kuan, you're speaking up for your sister. You like this, but she still doesn't appreciate it. I don't know who she's trying to impress with that cold face. I think we should give her a good beating first, beat her until she's obedient, and then hand her over to Brother Qin Kuan for some discipline. How about that?" Training. Qin Kuan felt a surge of warmth in his heart and blushed as he said, "Then don't go too far and hurt my Yu sister." Qingling nodded, a hint of disdain flashing in his eyes. If Qin Kuan weren't the child of the Qin family patriarch, he wouldn't have bothered with him at all. Lustful. Upon hearing their words, the Moon Angel's face turned cold, and she felt a wave of nausea. She pulled out the moon wheel and said coldly, "Come on, let me see if you, this tiger, are a cub or a fierce tiger." Boom. Without hesitation, Qingling unleashed her power and pounced forward. With a halberd in hand, he brandished the spring and autumn annals and brought it down fiercely, with overwhelming momentum and unparalleled ferocity. Like a hunting tiger, it remains still until it strikes, and when it does, it shakes the heavens and the earth. Roar. Qingling's aura transformed into a striped tiger, which suddenly pounced. An extremely terrifying and unparalleled aura instantly enveloped the entire space, making the onlookers feel heavy-hearted and as if their bodies were about to be torn apart. The Nine Heavens cave is truly terrifying. But the Moon Angel just watched indifferently. She was a 6th-level celestial being, and faced with such an aura, she felt no fear, but instead felt a terrifying fighting spirit. So what if it's a 9-layered grotto heaven? I'll fight you just the same. The Moon Angel moved with graceful ease, like a fairy dancing on water, surpassing the limits of speed. At this moment, she became the embodiment of the Tao. The moon wheel in her hand flashed in the air, bursting out with a sharp brilliance, like a silver ray of moonlight falling down. Clang! The moon wheel and Qingling's halberd collided, producing a tremendous sound that shook the heavens and echoed all around, creating an incredibly terrifying effect. This attack demonstrated Qingling's terrifying power. The halberd swung down and slammed down fiercely, as if carrying countless mountains, crashing down all at once. Fortunately, the Moon Angel's moon wheel was powerful enough that any mountain was as fragile as paper under the sharpness of the immortal weapon. The moon shattered the mountains and crashed into the halberd, unleashing a terrifying force. The two separated instantly, quickly creating distance between them. With this attack, the Moon Angel, relying on the power of the celestial artifact, achieved a draw. In the battle between the 6th heaven and the 9th heaven, she did not lose. Qingling's eyes narrowed as he stared intently at the Moon Angel's moon wheel, recognizing the weapon's extraordinary nature. Without it, the Moon Angel wouldn't have dared to confront him head-on. A celestial artifact. Qingling grinned, his eyes showing a hint of greed. It was able to withstand his primordial halberd strike so easily, without sustaining any injury, and even gave him a tremendous rebound force, causing Qingling's wrist to ache. Only a celestial artifact could achieve this level of hardness. The Moon Angel held the moon wheel in both hands, a crescent moon gleaming coldly behind her head. Her figure was slender, and she looked on coldly, saying, "The so-called 10 tigers are nothing more than this. The 9 heavens cannot suppress a celestial artifact that has not yet broken its immortal seal. The moon disk is very sharp and tough. The moon wheel currently only has these 2 items. Since the immortal restriction has not been lifted, the power of the immortal artifact cannot be unleashed. Therefore, compared to the primordial halberd, it is only a bit harder and sharper. Therefore, Yu Tianxia was disappointed that Qing Ling could not suppress him. The so-called one of the 10 tigers of the imperial family was not that powerful. Boom! The moon angel's words enraged Qing Ling. He sneered, his aura burning like a raging fire, staring at the moon angel, and said, "Anyone can use words. What you did just now was symbolic. Now I'm telling you, I want this immortal artifact." The moon angel, holding a moon wheel, said calmly, "The moon wheel is right here. Come and take it." Rumble. With a flick of his wrist, Qing Ling brought down the halberd. This attack had an extremely large range, covering the heavens and the earth, causing the void to collapse and the world to tremble. The power of the primordial halberd was fully unleashed, enveloping the moon angel and leaving her nowhere to escape. Qing Ling was like a deity. With each step he took, the world trembled, increasing the power of the halberd. The aftershocks alone caused the hearts of the people in the surrounding manor to beat rapidly, on the verge of collapse. Not to mention the moon angel in the center, who is under immense pressure. Hand over the immortal artifact, cripple your cultivation, and I won't kill you. Qing Ling was like a golden god, his whole body radiating light, soaring straight into the sky. His blood and energy were rich, and his golden hair danced wildly. He also resembled a golden tiger, opening his mouth wide to reveal his fangs, ready to devour people. It is terrifying and makes people tremble. At this moment, Qing Ling unleashed the full power of his 9 great grotto heavens, an immense and oppressive force, determined not to let the moon angel escape. "Brother Qing Ling, don't harm my sister Yu." Qin Kuan roared, feeling both frightened and worried. Qing Ling completely ignored Qin Kuan. What a coward. He only had eyes for the moon angel. The primordial halberd fell with a thunderous roar. Upon seeing this attack, Moon Angel sneered, "This is somewhat reminiscent of 10 tigers, but unfortunately, you can't stop me." Boom. The next second, as the primordial halberd fell, the Moon Angel channeled all the power of her 6th heavenly realm into the moon wheel. In an instant, the celestial barrier around the moon was broken. Rumble. Like a volcanic eruption, rumbling and roaring, a flash of cold light instantly pierced the sky, cutting off the path ahead and shattering the primordial halberd. Click. At this moment, Qing Ling's invincible magic weapon, the primordial halberd, shattered into 2 pieces. Its invincible pressure became as fragile as cotton the instant the immortal artifact broke free of its immortal seal. In an instant, everyone in the entire manor felt an extremely terrifying light sweeping over them, and everyone trembled and lay on the ground. Qin Kuan was even worse off. If he hadn't been secretly protected, he would have been killed by the Moon Angel's attack. After shattering the primordial halberd with this attack, the Moon Angel quickly retreated, took a bite of dragon tooth rice, and without hesitation inscribed a restriction to traverse the void. Boom. The Moon Angel, like a flickering light or a fleeting shadow, merged with the void and entered the 6-pointed star's restriction, disappearing in an instant. Chapter 283 Protect Yourself. Part 6. The Moon Angel still left, and no one stopped her. After the immortal artifact Moonwheel was unleashed, it unleashed its most powerful attack, breaking Qing Ling's primordial halberd and forcing Qing Ling to retreat continuously. Qing Ling even used all his true energy to withstand the attack. He witnessed the Moon Angel leave, his eyes filled with rage, yet he was powerless to stop it. Find her. Use all your strength to find this woman. Whether it's Qin Yu or the Moon Angel Ursula, they must die. Qing Ling roared, his anger overflowing, wishing he could grab his halberd and chop off the Moon Angel's head. Qin Kuan was well protected by the guardians sent by his father, but he was still frightened. He stood up in a panic, looked at the mess around him, and said in disbelief, "Was this caused by my sister Yu?" "Young master, Qin Yu must have had some extraordinary encounter. Last time on the battlefield, the warriors who returned all said that Qin Yu had her arms severed and her body pierced. She should have died long ago. But now she has come back to life, and is so powerful, possessing a celestial artifact. We must report this to the family. the guardian said coldly. If we report this to the family, won't they just arrest my sister Yu and take her back to be a martyr? Qin Kuan asked in surprise. That's natural. Martyrdom is her destiny. The Lord is very dissatisfied with this candidate for martyr, so capturing Qin Yu is the best outcome for us, the guardian nodded. But if Sister Yu is taken back to be a martyr, then I won't have a chance. Qin Kuan was conflicted. He hadn't tasted what Sister Yu was like yet, but he couldn't bear to let her become a martyr. Especially now that Moon Angel has become beautiful, exuding a mature and sophisticated aura. Her long, slender legs make Qin Kuan's heart race with desire. He is the body of the moon-greeting angel. The guardian earnestly advised, there are many women in the world, so don't worry about this one. The family's future is more important. Qin Kuan thought about it carefully and said, no, you're wrong. I can temporarily hold off on sending news of Sister Yu back to the family. I'll taste Sister Yu first and then report back to the family. The guardian's face twitched, utterly speechless. This guy had been blinded by lust. Qin Kuan was already obsessed with Moon Angel's body and was determined to have her. Come on, you are my guardian. Let's go find Sister Yu. I want to have a good heart-to-heart talk with her and let her know how sincere I am. Qin Kuan was lost in his own thoughts, unable to pull himself out. The guardian remained silent, clearly not wanting to engage with the cerebral palsy patient. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. The man had a father who was the clan chief, so the guardian had no choice but to take Qin Kuan away from Qingling Manor. Qingling also noticed Qin Kuan's departure, but he was now filled with rage and had no intention of entertaining Qin Kuan. He wanted to find the Moon Angel, set up a trap, kill the Moon Angel, and seize the immortal artifact. If you destroy my primordial halberd, I'll take your immortal weapon and cut off your head, Qingling said coldly, showing no lust for the Moon Angel's body. To him, a beautiful body was nothing more than a pile of bones and flesh. Only the power of cultivation is the eternal truth. The Moon Angel escaped from the Qingling Manor and fell into a forest. She quickly ate a few more mouthfuls of dragon tooth rice, found a clean place to sit down, and began to meditate and regulate her breathing. Activating the restrictions on the immortal artifact depleted her true energy. Each of the 6 grotto heavens was equivalent to a vast ocean of spiritual energy. Only by using all of it to activate the immortal restrictions could she unleash a single attack. One can imagine how difficult it was to activate the immortal restrictions. However, it was all worth it. After eating more than a dozen dragon tooth rice grains, the Moon Angel felt her strength return. She stood up, took out the world coordinates, and smiled. The Moon Angel's smile is a smile from the heart. She obtained the world coordinates for her master. Next, all we need to do is wait for Qiu Lin to obtain the Starry Sky guiding map. Then we can construct a world-class teleportation array to allow Xiandao to cross over to this world. Once Xiandao crosses over, he will be bringing the Heaven and Earth Bank and his subordinates with him, which is the most important thing for Moon Angel. Let the owner cross boundaries. This is the only thing the Moon Angel cares about right now. However, I've now exposed myself and offended the Qin and Qing families, 2 powerful imperial clans. With their influence, finding my whereabouts would be too easy for them. I must hurry. The thought of the 2 powerful imperial clans searching for her filled Moon Angel with anxiety. I don't care if I die, but the matter of my master crossing over to another realm cannot be delayed. If this matter is delayed, I will die 100 times and it will not be enough to atone for my sins. The Moon Angel looked at the moonlight with a firm gaze. Even if she had to give up her life, she would let her master cross over to another realm. Let's go back first. Now we just wait for Qiu Lin. The Moon Angel began traversing the void, returning to the Great Market. Inside the Heaven and Earth Bank, Xiandao and Shao Qi were watching the fight between Yu Tianxia and Qingling, as well as their escape. Xiandao's expression was indifferent, but upon closer inspection, there seemed to be flames flickering in his eyes. This generation of Xiandao was already very angry. However, with Shao Qi by his side, Xiandao didn't want Shao Qi to see him angry, so he tried his best to suppress it. Xiao Qi, however, said indignantly, "This Qin Kuan actually dared to set his sights on the Moon Angel. He's like a toad trying to eat swan meat." Li Xiandao calmly replied, "He can't eat it." "That's true. Qin Kuan is overthinking things. But I'm still worried. Can the Moon Angel withstand the siege of the two powerful imperial families?" Xiao Qi asked. "I don't know. I hope she can hold on until I cross over into another realm. That will be enough," Li Xiandao murmured. "No matter how great the dangers we encounter, no matter how many enemies we face, we must hold on until I cross over. Once I cross over, I will take care of all of this for you. You are not alone. You have a master behind you." Li Xiandao said firmly in his heart. "I'm not afraid of getting into trouble." With Li Xiandao around, if you've gotten into trouble, you need to stay alive so that Li Xiandao can help you resolve it. "I'm going to cultivate." Li Xiandao got up, entered the inheritance hall, and began to discuss the Tao with the Daoist, Zhao Wuji, the sword god, and Zhong Baixing. The Tao concerning the realm of Grotto Heavens. Although it is impossible to break through in the 10 earths, the more you learn and accumulate, the sooner you will be able to ascend to the 9 heavens, and you will rise to great heights. Inside the Tiangong Fang shop, Qiu Lin took 200,000 divine resources, purchased a starry sky guiding map, and then hurriedly ran out. He bought the starry sky navigation map and needed to get back as soon as possible. Qiu Lin was very worried about his older sister's safety. Those were, after all, the 10 tigers of the Qing family, powerful and formidable. Moreover, the Qing family was an imperial family with countless experts, making them a source of fear. Using his now somewhat proficient ability to traverse the void, Qiu Lin covered a considerable distance and headed towards the market. Chapter 284 Encirclement. Part 1. Back at the trading market, Moon Angel rushed back and waited silently for Qiu Lin's return at the inn. She possessed the boundary-breaking blade, the world coordinates, and various array materials. All that's missing is a star map to guide you. Once this thing arrives, we can start setting up the teleportation array. The Moon Angel sat in the room, wearing close-fitting silver armor, her long black hair cascading down her back like a waterfall, incredibly smooth. She looked very calm. But in reality, the Moon Angel is very anxious. She could clearly sense that someone was watching her from nearby. They were sneaky, very careful, and discreet. However, the Moon Angel's perception abilities far exceeded their expectations, and they discovered it immediately. It must have been someone from the Qin or Qing family who discovered her. Moon Angel can't leave yet. She and Qiu Lin agreed to meet here. If she leaves, Qiu Lin will fall into the hands of the Qing family, and Moon Angel will have to come and rescue him. "Come back quickly. I sense the enemy is on their way," the Moon Angel murmured. Bang! The next second, a 6-pointed star-shaped barrier appeared in the room, and a figure emerged from it. Qiu Lin, he still rushed back. The Moon Angel looked at Qiu Lin with surprise, hoping for good news. "I bought the starry sky guiding map. 200,000 divine sources." Qiu Lin exclaimed excitedly. The Moon Angel smiled and praised. "Well done, now everything is complete." Qiu Lin asked in surprise, "Big sister, you got the world coordinates?" "Got it." Moon Angel nodded with a smile. "That's great. I didn't expect our leader to be so powerful." She managed to get the world coordinates from the 10 tigers of the Qing family. "It seems like those 10 tigers aren't so formidable after all," Qiu Lin exclaimed excitedly. "The power of the 10 tigers of the Qing family is beyond your comprehension. Now, come out and face your death." A domineering shout resounded throughout the heavens and earth, booming like thunder, echoing through the air. Moon Angel's expression suddenly changed as she looked out the window and saw many figures walking towards the inn. Dressed in black, with cold expressions, each of them exuded an extraordinary aura. They surrounded the inn, led by a blonde-haired youth who looked down at the inn with an imposing presence and an icy expression. "Qing Ling, one of the 10 tigers of the Qing family, has arrived." Qiu Lin asked nervously. "How did he find us? What are we going to do now?" The Moon Angel instantly gave Qiu Lin all the material she had, the boundary-breaking blade, the world coordinates, and the diagram of the world-class teleportation array. She said seriously, "From now on, you will stay here and focus on building the world-class teleportation array. I will go out and hold them off." "Boss, there are too many of them," Qiu Lin said worriedly. "I'll be fine. The 1 second you get the world-class teleportation array built ahead of time, the 1 second I'll be safer." "Got it," Moon Angel said seriously. "Okay, I will do my best." Qiu Lin agreed without further ado and began to bury himself in building the world-class teleportation array. Right here at the inn, the world-class teleportation array diagram was set up, and Qiu Lin began to get busy. The Moon Angel looked out the window and suddenly leaped out. Boom! The Moon Angel made no attempt to conceal her imposing presence. Having consumed a considerable amount of dragon tooth rice, she had long since recovered to her original state, and had even made further progress. As they flew down from the inn, more than 200 people appeared before Moon Angel. Each of them possessed an imposing aura and was at the legendary realm. Many of them had even reached the cave heaven level. Their auras overlapped one after another, creating an incredibly terrifying and powerful force that pressed down on Moon Angel, intending to frighten her. The Moon Angel descended, ignoring their imposing manner, and said calmly, "You found me so quickly, you're quite fast." "Of course, my Qing family is an imperial family, having produced powerful figures at the great emperor level. Finding a woman like you who doesn't even try to hide her true colors is a piece of cake for us," Qingling said with a cruel smile. "I should have been more discreet," Moon Angel said regretfully. She hadn't expected to provoke the Qing family. She had always acted openly and had been seen by many people. "It's too late to regret it now. You have nowhere to escape now," Qingling sneered. "What if I escape?" Moon Angel looked around and said. She deliberately started arguing with Qingling, delaying time. Regardless of the circumstances, every second that can be delayed is a second more chance of survival. Qingling was unaware that Qiu Lin was setting up a world-class teleportation array in the inn, while the Moon Angel was diverting their attention to buy Qiu Lin time. "There's no chance of anything going on," Qingling said decisively. "Comply with me and hand over the immortal artifact, and I might spare your life." Qingling's eyes flashed as she offered her terms. "Perhaps," Moon Angel sneered, sensing the scheming in those words. "Perhaps they will spare her life. That all depends on Qingling's mood. Moon Angels aren't that stupid." "Yes, perhaps." Qingling smiled smugly and said, "Right now, you have no chance of escaping and are no match for me. Your life and death are in my hands. If you behave and act as an obedient maid, I might spare your life." Moon Angel gave a mocking smile. "A maid?" "Yes, maid." Qingling nodded, staring at the Moon Angel with no emotion in her eyes. He wasn't a womanizer. If saving the Moon Angel's life could gain Qin Kuan's support and strengthen ties with the Qin family, Qingling would do it without hesitation. Moon Angel is beautiful, has a great figure, and exudes a mature and sophisticated aura that can arouse a man's desire to conquer her, making him want to pin her down on the bed. But this does not include Qingling. Pressing the Moon Angel down on the bed only provides a few seconds of pleasure. Afterwards, she's just another woman. If he gives the Moon Angel to Chen Kuan in exchange for Qin Kuan giving him the Qin family's resources, then his cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds, and he will definitely not be at the bottom among the 10 tigers. Isn't this much better than a momentary pleasure? A man should be able to control his lower body and use a clear mind to obtain the greatest benefit. Qingling stared coldly at the Moon Angel. He was now certain of victory. "Brother Qingling, don't kill my sister you." Qin Kuan arrived at this moment, along with his guardians, and hurriedly shouted. A sneer flashed in Qingling's eyes. In his eyes, Qin Kuan was nothing more than a walking seed-sowing machine. But the next second he changed his expression to a smile and said, "Brother Qin Kuan, your sister Yu is now trapped. If you agree to what we agreed on before, I will not kill her. I will destroy her dantian and hand her over to you to deal with." "I agree." Upon hearing this condition, Qin Kuan agreed without hesitation. Qingling laughed, then burst into laughter. You truly are a man of character. I admire you, brother Qin Kuan. Qin Kuan smiled shyly and said, I just like Ume. The resources you want are no problem, but please don't hurt my Ume's body. The Moon Angel felt nauseous as she listened to the two discussing her body. Her face turned icy as she said, Do you think I've already surrendered? Chapter 285 I Am Her Master. Part 2. Qingling pointed at the Moon Angel and said coldly, In this situation, do you think you still have any choice? I think it's possible to salvage the situation, Moon Angel said earnestly. She has no intention of surrendering without a fight. Qingling laughed, utterly disdainful, and strode forward, saying, You think you can do whatever you want just because you have a celestial artifact? No, not at all, the Moon Angel said honestly. The immortal artifact was very powerful, but she could only unleash one attack at the moment, and that attack was extremely ordinary and could not kill this group of people. The energy of the sixth heavenly cave can unlock the seal on immortal artifacts, but to think that it can wipe out these 200 people in one fell swoop is wishful thinking. If it were the immense power of the 10th heavenly cave, perhaps we could try to force back these 200 plus people and kill half of them. But now the Moon Angel can only be used for deterrence. Qingling took another step forward and said, I know you have a celestial artifact, and I also know that once a celestial artifact is activated, its power is immense. That's why I brought these 200 people to surround you. You can activate the celestial restriction, but you can't kill us all in one strike. The Moon Angel said with a serious expression, Then let's give it a try. With the moon disk in hand, like a crescent moon, it burst forth with tremendous light behind the Moon Angel. A silvery light. Like moonlight, it falls down very beautiful, but also very dangerous. As the cold moon descended, a burst of silver light erupted, slashing directly at Qingling. The Moon Angel is still stalling for time. Words are no longer effective at delaying. Now it's time to fight alone and buy as much time as possible. Clang. When this attack came down, Qingling didn't dodge at all, but instead took the blow head-on. A layer of golden light emanated from his body, blocking the Moon Angel's attack. Boom. The shockwave from this attack spread around, stirring up dust. Qingling stood there unharmed, looking at the Moon Angel with a smug smile on her face. The Moon Angel retreated after her attack, her eyes narrowing as she asked, A celestial artifact? The protective layer Qingling was wearing could withstand a slash from the moon wheel. What else could it be but a celestial artifact? Qingling shook her head and said, This is a pseudo-immortal artifact, which I borrowed from my family. It is a defensive pseudo-immortal artifact, extremely powerful, and can completely withstand your immortal artifact attacks. Because the immortal artifacts are not unsealed, they are only much sharper than pseudo-immortal artifacts. Even if the immortal artifact is unsealed, Qingling is confident that he can withstand the attack of the unsealed immortal artifact with the energy of his 9 heavens cave. There's no other reason than that the 6-fold heavenly cave is still too weak. How about it? Are you feeling desperate now? Qingling smiled smugly, looking at the Moon Angel with a playful gaze. Like a cat playing with a mouse, he had the Moon Angel completely under his control. A pseudo-immortal artifact with full defensive properties. More than 200 people. There are many first-level and second-level grotto heavens. All of these are combined to deal with the Moon Angel. Qingling was cautious by nature and didn't want the Moon Angel to escape. It's now a complete trap, leaving the Moon Angel nowhere to hide. Just surrender obediently, and I'll destroy your Dantian. You can still become Brother Qin Kuan's maid, serve him well, and survive, Qingling said confidently, speaking words of flattery to Qin Kuan. After hearing this, Qin Kuan felt very pleased. He thought Qingling was a very good brother and that he had made good friends with him. He would give him more resources in the future. Moon Angel sneered. Serve him. I am the Moon Angel Ursula, and I have nothing to do with him. In this life, I will only bow down to one person. As for Qin Kuan, whom you speak of, he is not worthy, the Moon Angel said disdainfully. Qin Kuan's expression changed drastically. He had been quite shy, but now upon hearing Yu Tianxia's words, he flew into a rage, feeling humiliated. He glared at Yu Tianxia and shouted, "You've been fawning over other men?" In Qin Kuan's heart, his Yu sister must still be a virgin, which is why he is so lusting after her body. But now that hope was shattered, and Qin Kuan suddenly felt that the moon angel was filthy, and felt a deep-seated anger. "My master," the moon angel said proudly. She stared at Qin Kuan with contempt and disdain. How could a lecherous glutton compare to her master? "Who is your master? How dare you take a martyr of my Qin family as a slave? You deserve to die. I will report your information to the family, and your master will also be someone my Qin family must kill." Qin Kuan was furious and tore off the mask of pretense, directly threatening to report the moon angel's information to the Qin family. "You are not worthy to know my master's name," the moon angel said coldly. Qin Kuan said angrily, "Brother Qingling, destroy this vile woman's dantian. She is a martyr of my Qin family, so she should fulfill the duties of a martyr. I want to take her back to the family and then offer her up." Qingling stared blankly at Qin Kuan and asked, "You don't want her to serve you in bed anymore? Those who willingly degenerate are not worthy of me," Qin Kuan said arrogantly, flicking his sleeve. The moon angel looked on with a mocking expression, not uttering a word, too lazy to talk to this good-for-nothing and lecherous bastard. "All right then, we've dragged this out for so long, it's time to end this." Qingling nodded and was about to step forward to capture the moon angel. "Do you know?" the moon angel suddenly asked. "What?" Qingling frowned. "Do you know how your younger brother, young Master Qingfeng, died?" Moon angel continued to stall for time. "I don't want to know. His life or death is none of my business. Just as you wouldn't care about the death of an ant in a moment, so do I. Besides, you seem to be stalling for time." Qingling was cold-blooded, not taking his half-brother seriously, but instead keenly noticing that the moon angel was stalling for time. The moon angel remained silent. The next second, a surge of energy emanated from behind the moon angel, ripples spreading throughout the world. The calm sky seemed to be disturbed, rippling with waves. Qingling's expression changed, and she shouted, "As expected, your goal is the world coordinates, which is to build a world-class teleportation array." The moon angel looked at the inn and smiled happily, saying, "You know too late. My master has already crossed over to this world. No matter who your master is, you will surely die today." Qingling roared, his body radiating dazzling light, burning like a sun and illuminating the entire market, making many people unable to open their eyes. Rumble. Qingling unleashed a powerful punch, transforming into a raging tiger engulfed in flames, and charged towards the moon angel. This was a furious attack from the 9 heavens, incredibly powerful. Even the moon angel paled. She had to activate the immortal restriction to withstand it. But the next second, a terrifying power burst forth from the inn. Boom. This force shattered Qingling's tiger, and also sent Qingling flying 30 meters away, staggering and staring in disbelief. "Who are you?" Qingling roared. "I am her master," a cold voice rang out, followed by a figure walking out of the inn. "Take a step forward." With a loud bang, the 200-plus people instantly felt as if they were facing a prehistoric beast that bared its fangs and roared at them. Roar. Chapter 286 Killing Qin Kuan. Part 3. Li Xiandao crossed realms, emerged from the teleportation array, felt the spiritual energy 100 times greater than that of the 10th realm, took a deep breath, and then walked out. Boom. The next second, a powerful force erupted from Li Xiandao's body, spreading out and instantly sending Qingling flying. "I am the master of the moon angel. You want to kill her, did you ask for my opinion?" Li Xiandao looked around, his words full of killing intent. The surrounding air was solemn and shocked, and an invisible killing intent was revealed and burst forth. Rumble. Qingling flew out of the ground, reached out and slapped down, then unleashed terrifying power. A huge golden hand transformed into a celestial monument and slammed down, instantly cracking the void and creating a black canyon, which was extremely terrifying. This is the formidable power of the Nine Heavens Cave. It is extremely terrifying. I don't care whose master you are. If I, Qingling, want to kill someone, do I need to greet you? Qingling roared, his eyes filled with fury, extremely terrifying, his golden hair dancing wildly, his gaze sharp. At this moment, Qingling shone like the brightest star in the night sky, bursting forth with golden light, burning fiercely like a raging flame. The terrifying power of this attack had reached the limit of Qingling's abilities. It was incredibly beautiful and dazzling, drawing expectant glances from the surrounding Qing family members. The 10 tigers of the Qing family are just that powerful. But the next second, Xiandao easily struck the giant hand of the heavenly steel with a backhand, unleashing a tremendous burst of light. The power of the heavenly steel was actually blocked by Xiandao's casual strike. No! It's impossible. Qingling couldn't believe that his strongest attack had been blocked like this. Wearing a mask, Xiandao looked over with a cold gaze and said, "Right now, you're just like a clown, playing your little tricks." "I don't believe it." Qingling roared, instantly slapping his golden hand repeatedly with tremendous power, which horrified everyone around. This power was extremely terrifying, causing the void to tremble. Clang! 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 However, no matter how many times he slapped him, Xiandao simply slapped him lightly, sending him flying. 9 golden celestial tablets crashed down in succession with tremendous force, sending Qingling flying with 9 consecutive slaps. Qingling coughed up 9 mouthfuls of blood, his face pale and weak. Even with the protection of the pseudo-celestial artifact, his physical body still felt as if it were about to crack. How is this possible? I used the power of the 9 great grotto heavens. Each slap was equivalent to the power of 1 grotto heaven. When it was unleashed, the power was enormous. How could this be? Qingling coughed up blood and looked at Xiandao in horror. Not only him, but everyone around him looked as if they had seen a ghost, completely unable to believe what was happening. Maybe it's because you're too weak. Xiandao thought about it carefully. If there was no other explanation, then this was the only possibility. You. This angered Qingling so much that she spat out a mouthful of blood, and her whole body trembled. Is he weak? At the age of 20, he had reached the 9th heaven realm. As one of the 10 tigers of the Qing family, he had a bright future and could be considered a prodigy. Is he weak? Qingling looked at Xiandao with grief and indignation, furious but helpless, and hurriedly repaired her injuries. Upon seeing Xiandao so easily defeat Qingling, the Moon Angel immediately knelt down on one knee and exclaimed excitedly, "Welcome, Master, to the realm. Get up. You did well this time. There will be a reward." Xiandao nodded and said calmly, "Thank you, Master." The Moon Angel stood up, stepped back behind Xiandao, and stood respectfully. Qin Kuan was furious when he saw this. "Qin, you looked down on him because of this jerk. Who are you to dare to make a martyr of my Qin family your subordinate? How dare you?" Qin Kuan roared, his face turning ashen with rage. "I am the master of the Moon Angel." Xiandao looked at Qin Kuan with cold eyes and cold words. He had witnessed Qin Kuan's behavior at the Heaven and Earth Bank and found him to be a lecherous scoundrel. He's still a good-for-nothing lecher who only has a rich father. Qin Yu is a member of my Qin family. You actually made someone from the Qin family work for you? Are you tired of living? Qin Kuan said through gritted teeth. Moon Angel is a member of your Qin family? Xiandao sneered, looking at Moon Angel and asking, "Are you a member of the Qin family?" The Moon Angel coldly replied, "The Moon Angel Ursula is the master's person, not Qin Yu, and has no relation to the Qin family." Xiandao looked at Qin Kuan, his eyes cold, and said, "Did you hear that?" Qin Kuan sneered, "Did you think you could escape by changing your name? The power of my Qin family far exceeds your imagination. The imperial family on the Moon Palace is not something a masked person like you can provoke. Now, obediently hand over Qin Yu and cripple your cultivation, or I will let you know the majesty of the Qin family, Qin Kuan said arrogantly. Upon hearing this, Qingling closed her eyes speechlessly, feeling utterly exhausted, and couldn't help but curse. Qin Kuan, that pig. Didn't you see that he couldn't beat this mysterious masked man even with 9 slaps? You have no power now, and the Qin family isn't here, so what are you so arrogant about? As expected, upon hearing this, Xiandao frowned and silently took a step forward. Boom. This step was taken silently, but once it landed, it caused an instant and earth-shattering impact. Countless sword energies shot out from beneath Xiandao's feet, transforming into a dense rain of swords that instantly enveloped Qin Kuan. Qin Kuan was stunned. What's going on? You're going to kill me over a single disagreement? Shouldn't you be wary of my family? Shouldn't you be afraid of imperial families? The tactics that had always worked perfectly now completely failed, leaving Qin Kuan utterly stunned. He can't beat Xiandao. Or rather, his cultivation level was similar to Qiu Lin's. Neither of them had broken through to the human immortal realm. Faced with Xiandao's invincible sword energy, Qin Kuan roared, "Guardian, save me!" The Guardian is also exhausted. Xiandao is so powerful now. Why did you provoke him? But he couldn't leave the man unattended, so he roared and channeled all his energy into his fist, unleashing a powerful punch to kill Xiandao. He wasn't going to save Qin Kuan, but to kill Xiandao. This is a strategy of besieging Wei to rescue Zhao, forcing Xiandao not to kill Qin Kuan, but instead to deal with him. However, he underestimated Xiandao. Faced with this powerful punch, Xiandao pointed his fingers like a sword and thrust directly forward. Overturn the seas. This sword strike, bursting forth in an instant, contained the power of an entire sea, and instantly struck the Guardian's fist. Rumble. The extremely terrifying fist technique had no chance to be used against Fu Hai's sword. The overturning sea point directly blocked the attack, and then a vast ocean surged down, covering the area. Any fist that was struck was reduced to smoke and dust. The Guardian was instantly blasted away by the blasting sea, coughing up blood as his body swayed and crashed into Qingling's side. No! He ignored his own injuries and stared at Qin Kuan in horror. Qin Kuan is dead, and he can't live either. Rumble. But his roars were to no avail. Qin Kuan was ultimately overwhelmed by Xiandao's sword energy. He only had time to shout, "My father is Qin Wu. You dare kill me? You're dead." Chapter 287 The Tenfold Heavenly Cave. Part 4. Even if your father is the Heavenly Emperor, I will still turn the heavens upside down, Xiandao said disdainfully, completely disregarding Qin Kuan. Xiandao killed Qin Kuan as easily as killing a fly, a casual strike, not worth mentioning. He looked at Qingling and the 200+ people around him, his eyes indifferent, and said, "You brought so many people to kill my men, how do you want to die? Who exactly are you?" Qingling gritted his teeth and stared intently at Xiandao, but found that he could not see through Xiandao's cultivation level at all. It's not that Xiandao's cultivation level is too high, but rather that the cultivation level he is currently displaying is somewhat low. Qingling didn't believe it. An unknown person, the master of the Moon Angels. Xiandao said calmly, "You just killed Qin Kuan, the son of the Qin family, and now you want to kill me. You've offended 2 powerful imperial families in succession. Have you thought about the consequences?" Qingling asked. Xiandao nodded and said, "I have thought about it." "You still killed Qin Kuan after thinking about it?" Qingling said in disbelief. Even if he hated and despised Qin Kuan, he would not kill him, as that would completely offend the Qin family. They're just 2 powerful families. What's there to worry about? Xiandao said coldly. Just 2 aristocratic families. Qingling couldn't believe his ears and stared at Xian, saying, "These are 2 aristocratic families that have produced emperors. They have profound foundations and are first-class aristocratic families." So what? Li Xiandao retorted to Qingling. Qingling was speechless for a moment. Li Xiandao's recklessness has distorted his values. Do imperial families not have any deterrent power? Why was Li Xiandao not afraid at all, but instead looked at him with extreme indifference? With your cultivation level, my Qin family has plenty of people who could kill you. You're too arrogant. Qin Kuan's guardian, recovering from his disappointment, gritted his teeth and said. He was protecting Qin Kuan, and now that Qin Kuan is dead, given Qin Kuan's father's personality, he's either dead or crippled. So now the guardian is utterly desperate, no longer afraid of Li Xiandao, and watches with a cold laugh. My cultivation level? Li Xiandao examined himself and asked, is it very weak? Although I don't know why you are so powerful and your aura is so overwhelming, you haven't even condensed a single cave heaven. You haven't even entered the cave heaven realm yet, so how can you be a match for my emperor family? The guardian sneered. Qingling looked at Li Xiandao in surprise, never expecting that Li Xiandao had not entered the cave heaven realm. Now that he looked at it, he realized that Li Xiandao really didn't have a cave heaven. He relied entirely on his own power. This shocked Qingling even more. What he had seen before was true. Li Xiandao's cultivation was indeed that weak. But it was precisely because of the lack of a condensed cave that Qingling felt disheartened. Because Li Xiandao, relying solely on his own strength, had rendered him utterly powerless and completely outmatched, his body on the verge of collapse. This was an extremely terrifying situation. Could this be the body of an ancient, primordial deity? Otherwise, there's no reason for it to be so terrifying. Seeing their surprised expressions, Li Xiandao took a step forward and said indifferently, is it difficult to enter the cave heaven realm? Boom! After Li Xiandao took that step, the wind and clouds surged, the sky and earth changed color, and a sound like ghosts wailing and wolves howling came from the darkness. Extremely sharp, it pierces the eardrum. This is the tearing sound caused by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth being absorbed into Li Xiandao's body, turning into a vortex, and rapidly pulling on other spiritual energy. It is not a real ghostly wail. In an instant, Li Xiandao devoured all the spiritual energy within a radius of 500 miles, and continued to plunder countless spiritual energies from the surrounding area. Within Li Xiandao's body, surging energy surged. The immense and profound energy accumulated in the 10 lands erupted completely at this moment. After Li Xiandao took a step forward, a new world suddenly opened up behind his head. Yes, one world. Others' grottos are just that. Grottos, containing no more than 100 meters in size, while others might be 1,000 meters. The Moon Angel's grotto is as vast as the Yangtze River. She has only just broken through and has not yet fully unleashed its power. Li Xiandao's grotto heaven is a world in itself. A world that is both incredibly familiar and beautiful. High off the ground. This was the first world Li Xiandao saw when he opened his eyes. Now that he has condensed his own grotto heaven, he will take the Great Li Earth as his first grotto heaven. Rumble. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth within a radius of 10,000 miles transformed into 10 enormous dragons, which swept into Li Xiandao's cave. At this moment, Li Xiandao's terrifying power left Qingling and the guardians speechless. This cave is terrifying. After the first grotto heaven was formed, Li Xiandao took another step forward. The second step was taken silently. However, when he landed, the heavens and earth trembled, all things shook, and all the spiritual energy surged into Li Xiandao's body, rushing into the second cave world. The ancient land. Li Xiandao condensed a second grotto heaven, using the desolate ancient land as a basis to evolve a world. The terrifying scene made Qingling's legs go weak. He stared in horror, wanting to escape but unable to. The sheer power of Li Xiandao's absorption of spiritual energy was terrifying. Within a radius of 100,000 miles, the spiritual energy generated at that moment was absorbed by Li Xiandao, and no one could outdo him. Countless people stood up, looking at the market in shock, unable to believe it. What kind of powerful being had broken through? They had no idea that this was merely Li Xiandao breaking through to the cave heaven realm. Many people rushed over to see what had happened. But those on the market side couldn't help but kneel down. Moon Angel and Qiu Lin knelt down willingly. After Qiu Lin had worked his hardest to build the teleportation array in the room, he watched as Xiandao crossed over to another realm. He followed Xiandao out and stood behind the Moon Angel, watching with great excitement. As expected of the owner of the Heaven and Earth Bank, his strength is simply too great. The fact that the condensation of the Grotto Heaven could create such a powerful aura gave Qiu Lin a subtle idea at that moment. Xiandao was unaware of Qiu Lin's thoughts, and he continued to stride forward. Step 3. Thump. Another immense pressure crashed down, instantly forcing everyone present to their knees. Xiandao's aura was overwhelming, with the 3 great worlds behind him, terrifying yet enviable. Forever. This third world is eternal. At this moment, Xiandao took the 4th step, the 5th step, the 6th step, the 7th step. On the 10th step, Xiandao walked up to Qingling. At this moment, Qingling was completely subdued, and even the pseudo-immortal artifact-level defense on his body was groaning in despair, desperately trying to resist Xiandao's terrifying aura. The guardian standing nearby was so crushed by Xiandao that he vomited blood and died completely. As for the more than 200 men that Qingling brought, they died from ruptured blood vessels as soon as Xiandao took the 5th step. Only Qingling, protected by the pseudo-immortal artifact, was able to persevere. But now, the way he looked at Xiandao was as if he were looking at an invincible god. Xiandao's 10 great grotto heavens are the 10 earths. The Great Desolate Land, the Ancient Wasteland, the Cloud and Mist Land, the Ancient Buddha Land, the Great Demon Land, the Land of 10,000 Beasts, the Kunlun Land, the Red Land, the Eternal Land, and the Land of the Dead. The 10 lands had just gathered the 10 great grotto heavens. At this moment, Xiandao's aura pressed down for 10,000 miles, and he alone devoured all the spiritual energy within a radius of 10,000 miles. Now, do you think I'm afraid of the so-called imperial families? Xiandao asked Qingling, slowly dissipating his aura. The 10 great grotto heavens returned to his body, causing his power to surge at this moment. Xiandao had the illusion that he could tear this world apart with a single hand. Chapter 288 Heaven and Earth Bank established for 9 days. Part 5. Qingling slowly raised her head and looked at Xiandao as if she were looking at an ancient god. At this moment, Xiandao represents the symbol of invincibility. At this moment, even though Qingling's cultivation level was at the 9th level of the cave heaven, it seemed that there was only 1 realm difference between her and Xiandao's 10th level of the cave heaven. But in reality, he felt that the gap between him and Xiandao was like the difference between heaven and earth, which terrified him. How can you be so terrifying? Qingling looked at Xian in horror. Xiandao looked at him, his eyes indifferent and devoid of emotion, and said, "Tell me, should I kill you or not?" Qingling took a deep breath and said resolutely, "Killing or not killing, it's all the same. You've shattered my confidence all along. It's perfectly normal for me to kill your subordinates and for you to kill me." Qingling was a decisive man. Knowing he was doomed, he didn't beg for mercy. Rather than grovel and beg, he preferred to die with some dignity. Xiandao looked at Qingling and said with a playful tone, "I suddenly don't want to kill you anymore. I was able to cross realms thanks to your world coordinates. In the end, I should thank you properly." Qingling looked at Xiandao in surprise. "Not kill him? Are you afraid I'll retaliate against you later?" Qingling asked. "I've shattered your confidence. Unless you can regain it, you'll never recover. To be honest, I've never taken you seriously," Xiandao said sincerely. Sincere words are the most hurtful. Qingling was speechless. Xiandao's powerful aura, without even making a move, was enough to immobilize him. There was absolutely nothing wrong with what he said. "Get up. This time, your subordinates and the Qin family members are all dead. You're the only one left. You'll probably have to face questioning from 2 powerful imperial families." Xiandao said calmly, then walked away, truly not killing Qingling. Upon seeing this, The moon angel immediately followed Li Xiandao and left. Big sister, wait for me. Qiu Lin quickly caught up and called out. Li Xiandao stopped and looked at Qiu Lin, saying, "Our contract is over." Qiu Lin nodded and smiled. "The contract is over, but we should be friends now, right? How about I treat you to dinner?" Qiu Lin wanted to build a good relationship before making his demands. "No need. Now that the contract is over, there's no connection between us. From now on, just do your best," Li Xiandao said, shaking his head. Money shop owner, I actually want to join you and become your subordinate." Qiu Lin knew that being separated was not an option, so he quickly brought up his idea. Li Xiandao looked at Qiu Lin in surprise. Why would he suddenly want to become his subordinate? "I don't need any subordinates," Li Xiandao refused. Qiu Lin's cultivation was too weak. "Don't underestimate me just because my cultivation level is low. I have the body of a god king. And I also have the talent of God King Berry's pure land. Give me a little time, and I'll grow very quickly," Qiu Lin said, trying to sell himself. "No, you may not know, but in the Heaven and Earth Bank, none of my subordinates are inferior to your Divine King physique. To be honest, the Divine King physique is highly sought after outside, but in my opinion, it's not enough to be my subordinate." Li Xiandao refused without hesitation. He didn't take a Divine King physique seriously. Qiu Lin was dumbfounded. His precious Divine King body was actually not worthy of Li Xiandao's attention. At this moment, he did not feel that Li Xiandao was humiliating him. On the contrary, he felt that Li Xiandao had too many experts under his command, and he must join them. Li Xiandao didn't give him that chance. A six-pointed star formation appeared, and he stepped into it, saying, "You did a very good job this time. The remaining 800,000 divine sources are all yours. We'll never meet again." The moon angel also embarked on the journey across the void barrier. Before leaving, she glanced at Qiu Lin and said, "Cultivate diligently and unlock the potential of your God King body. You will achieve great things. Also, watch out for the Qin and Qing families. Don't let them chase you down," Moon Angel cautioned. She was quite satisfied with Qiu Lin for building this world-class teleportation array together. "So I'd like to offer a few words of advice." Qiu Lin nodded, knowing that he could no longer become Li Xiandao's subordinate, so he had to think of other ways and watch Li Xiandao and the Moon Angel disappear before his eyes. "The owner of Tiandi Money House has many experts under his command. I must go in and become one of them. Only by sparring with these experts can I improve. I will not give up," Qiu Lin said firmly. Li Xiandao and the Moon Angel entered the teleportation array and arrived at a vast grassland. The night sky was dotted with stars, making it incredibly beautiful. This grassland is 100,000 miles away from the large market we just visited. There was no one around, and the moonlight was hazy. Li Xiandao temporarily set up the Heaven and Earth money shop here. The Heaven and Earth Bank cannot travel freely at present. Li Xiandao can take the Heaven and Earth Bank with him wherever he goes, but he can only stay in one world and cannot cross worlds. Now Li Xiandao has established the Heaven and Earth Bank on this grassland. The Heaven and Earth Bank is hidden in the void, and no one can find it. Li Xiandao and Yu Tianxia entered the Heaven and Earth money shop. Rumble. The Heaven and Earth Bank is getting used to this world, and countless streams of spiritual energy are flowing in, changing the original spiritual energy in the 10 places. The spiritual energy, 100 times richer than that of the 10th place, was absorbed by everyone in an instant, and everyone was overjoyed and excited. Li Xiandao told Yu Shi to go and rest, as she had worked hard this time. Inside the Heaven and Earth Bank, Li Xiandao returned to his room, found Xiao Qi, and asked, "Now that we've entered the cold moon heaven, what do you think should be the first thing we do?" "There are actually many things to do: unsealing the 5th mountain peak, clearing up contracts, entertaining guests, or diligently cultivating one's mind. I'm working on the contract, but I think you should first set an address for Tiandi Money Shop," Xiao Qi told Li Xian. Li Xiandao frowned and said, "Should we set an address?" "That's right. You just casually set up the Heaven and Earth Bank on the grassland. Although the heaven and earth bank can disappear into the void, it's not convenient here, and the spiritual energy isn't abundant. Xiao Qi nodded. You mean find a place with abundant spiritual energy, set up the heaven and earth bank there, and then expand from there to Cold Moon Heaven, and then to the 9 heavens? Li Xiandao asked. That's right, that's exactly it. In ordinary places in Honyue Heaven, the spiritual energy is 100 times that of the 10 lands. But in some sacred places, the spiritual energy is several hundred times that of the 10 lands. If you set up some spirit gathering arrays, spirit locking arrays, etc., the spiritual energy can reach 1,000 times. This difference is huge. Xiao Qi looked at Li Xiandao and said. Li Xiandao nodded, agreeing with Xiao Qi's words, and asked, Then do you have any good recommendations? Li Xiandao knows nothing about Hanyuishan right now. He's completely clueless. He should ask Xiao Qi for advice. Chapter 289 Qingling's Tragic Fate. Part 6. Xiao Qi did not answer Li Xiandao's question, but instead took out a contract and handed it to Li Xiandao. Look at this. Xiao Qi said with a slight smile to Li Xian. Li Xiandao looked at the contract and reached out to flip it open. The 4th-generation leader of the Myriad Spirits Holy Land paid 10 million jin of divine energy to borrow 10 spiritual energy dragon veins from the Heavenly Bank. 10,000 years later, he will repay the Heavenly Bank with these 10 spiritual energy dragon veins. The consequences of breach of contract. The entire Holy Land of all spirits will belong to the Heavenly Bank. This is the specific content of the contract. More importantly, this contract was signed 30,000 years ago. 30,000 years have passed, and the other party has still not repaid the 10 spiritual dragon veins, which means they have definitely breached the contract. Li Xiandao looked at Xiao Qi and asked, Is this person still alive? It's still alive. If it were dead, I wouldn't have taken it out. I should have just thrown it away when I was sorting out the contracts, Xiao Qi said. Li Xiandao nodded and asked, What exactly are these 10 spiritual energy dragon veins? It's a divine vein in the 9 heavens, but a level higher than a divine vein, Xiao Qi explained. If we consider the divine veins as the collection of divine sources in the 10 lands, then the spiritual energy dragon veins are the collection of spiritual energy in the 9 heavens. A spiritual energy dragon vein can autonomously absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to replenish itself and nourish the sect. By setting up a restriction to lock the spiritual vein, we can obtain a continuous source of spiritual energy, Xiao Qi added. Li Xiandao understood and asked, Are these 10 spiritual energy dragon veins located in this sacred land of 10,000 spirits? Here. Xiao Qi nodded, sat down next to Li Xiandao, pointed to the contract and said, I gave you the contract because I saw that the Wanling Holy Land has a very good environment, is secluded from the world, and is very suitable for our Qiandi Chenzhuang to be a base. Is the scenery beautiful? Li Xiandao asked. He had never been to this sacred land of 10,000 spirits and did not know the specifics. Xiao Qi nodded and said, 30,000 years ago, when your predecessor had just taken over the Heaven and Earth Bank, he signed a contract with this sect leader. I have seen the Myriad Spirits Holy Land that the sect leader conjured up. It was very beautiful. Li Xiandao clicked his tongue as he listened and said, That bastard signed his first contract in the 9 heavens and even got 10 spiritual dragon veins. I'm so envious. Xiao Qi chuckled to herself, remembering how difficult Li Xiandao's life had been. The first contract involved exchanging 5 years of his own lifespan with someone else, which gradually helped to elevate the Heaven and Earth Bank. Compared to his predecessor, that bastard, Li Xiandao had a very difficult start. Just how beautiful is the Holy Land of 10,000 spirits? Li Xiandao didn't want to talk about sad things, so he changed the subject and asked. The Holy Land of all spirits is an island overseas, shaped like a winding dragon, adorned with hundreds of rare spiritual flowers, making it beautiful and flawless. Moreover, that place is close to the mainland, not too far away, making it very suitable for us, Xiao Qi replied. Li Xiandao nodded. Following Xiao Qi's advice, he was also tempted. This vast grassland is too sparse and unsuitable for the identity of the heaven and earth money shop. Xiandao thought for a moment and said, "You continue to organize the contracts. Organize all the contracts in Hanuishan. I will go and take a look at this place myself." Xiao Qi stood up, winked playfully at Xiandao, and said crisply, "Okay." Xiandao smiled as he watched Xiao Qi leave. He held the contract for a moment, then changed his clothes, wearing a white robe and a black one, and stepped out of the Heaven and Earth Bank. It was already dawn, and the first rays of sunlight were casting their glow, banishing the darkness from the grassland. When Xiandao stepped out of the Heaven and Earth Bank, the first thing he saw was a pack of wolves frantically dismembering a wild bull. Seeing this scene so early in the morning was a bit bloody. This grassland has no class and is not suitable for the Heaven and Earth Bank, Xiandao frowned and muttered. With one step, the six-pointed star's void-crossing restriction appeared, and Xiandao headed towards the distance. He took Qiandi Bank with him when he left, and didn't intend to leave it here. Xiandao is looking for a new location for the Heaven and Earth money shop. On the other hand, Qingling was not killed by Xiandao, but instead felt even worse than if she had been killed. He was thunderously questioned by the head of the Qin family. Qin Kuan was a guest at his place, and now Qin Kuan has been killed, but he hasn't been killed. That's the biggest problem. The head of the Qin family even wanted to kill Qingling to accompany his son in death. Fortunately, the Qing family was also a family of emperors, and they did not allow the killing of their direct bloodline members. They agreed to cripple Qingling's cultivation, spare his life, and keep asking him about everything related to Xiandao. The once formidable Qing family's 10 tigers have been reduced to cripples with their cultivation crippled in an instant, which is undoubtedly a great irony. He didn't die at Xiandao's hands, but was instead crippled by his own family, all to appease the Qin family patriarch's anger. Qingling was abandoned as a pawn. He was heartbroken and unable to describe his feelings in words. Having just been dealt a severe blow by Xiandao and was preparing to regain his confidence and strive harder, his family arrived. Without saying a word, they directly crippled his cultivation, escorted him back, and subjected him to torture and interrogation. The Qin family patriarch watched from above with a cold eye, while the Qing family patriarch stared indifferently at Qingling, completely disregarding the so-called one of the 10 tigers. After extracting everything Qingling knew, the interrogation ended. The Qing family patriarch coldly said, "Because of your mistake, you caused the death of the Qin family's young master and almost ruined the friendly relations between our two families. Now, your cultivation is crippled to atone for your sins against the Qin family. From now on, you should live a good life in the family and have children. The family will provide you with a wife. Qingling's only purpose now is as a stud. If it weren't for that purpose, he might actually be killed to vent the Qin family patriarch's anger." Qingling looked at the Qin family patriarch with despair, a sneer on his lips. He was too lazy to argue. With a father like that, it was no wonder that he could raise such a good-for-nothing as Qin Kuan. He was courting death, and in the end, it was he who suffered the most. Once I catch that person, if he says you were involved in Qin Kuan's death, don't blame me for being ruthless towards you. The Qin family patriarch disliked Qingling's mockery and said coldly, flicking his sleeve. Qingling just smiled sarcastically and didn't say anything. A useless son, a doting father, a whole family of useless people. Humph, now that he's a cripple, he's still so arrogant. I'd like to see how he'll get through this miserable life. The Qin family head sneered and turned away. Qingling was then thrown into a courtyard where an old nanny served him. Soon after, a woman who was not ugly came in and said that she was his wife and would have his child. Qingling stared at her coldly, which frightened her so much that she dared not approach. "You're already a cripple, yet you still have such a big temper. If it weren't for the housekeeper's orders, I wouldn't want to be your wife," the woman said disdainfully. "Then let's go, I don't mind," Qingling said indifferently with his eyes closed. At this moment, his heart was ashen. Chapter 290 The Holy Land of 10,000 Spirits. Part 1. Qingling's tragic fate did not elicit sympathy. The competition within the Qing family was fierce, and with him crippled, someone else was just the right person to take his place. Qingling has now offended the Qin family head and is resented by him. People who were once close to him have suddenly disappeared without a trace. The entire Qing family was so large, yet not a single person came to visit him. Qingling experienced the highs and lows of life, and occasionally he thought of suicide to free himself. However, Qingling, with his strong will, still did not do so. He was not killed by the masked master, but was crippled by his own people. Now, to commit suicide would be a cowardly act. Qingling eventually survived, but within the Qing family, she was despised by everyone and ignored by no one. Even his nominal wife doesn't look at him, instead flirting with other people all day long, making Qingling's hat on his head turn green. Qingling knew all this, but he remained unmoved. In any case, he would not touch his so-called wife. In the eyes of outsiders, he became taciturn, like a tortoise, indifferent to everything. Fortunately, there was a nanny who took good care of Qingling, giving him a little warmth, even though this nanny was mute and only responsible for his 3 meals a day. Since his injury, his father has not visited him even once, and Qingling has been very indifferent to this. Every day he would go to the riverbank and sit there all day long. Nobody knew what he was doing. Was he spacing out? Or acting foolishly? Over time, everyone forgot about him. Qingling, who was once one of the 10 tigers of the Qing family and had a bright future, suddenly became an unknown person. But this suited him perfectly. A caterpillar must endure hardship to transform into a butterfly. I didn't understand this principle before, but this series of setbacks has made me understand it. I look forward to the day I transform into a butterfly. Qingling sat in the sunlight, feeling warm all over. At this moment, his destroyed dantian and meridians burst forth with powerful vitality. He suffered a great calamity, his mind was extinguished, and in his dazed state, a flash of inspiration struck him, and he remembered the secret manual he had received as a child. Zhuangzhou Meng Dai. In a dream, Zhuangzi met a butterfly, which led to a philosophical dialogue. The ancient sage Zhuangzi then used this to create a supreme and unique school of thought. Qingling has grasped a little bit of the truth and is waiting for the moment when he transforms into a butterfly. I should thank that mysterious masked expert. Without him striking me down and sparing my life, I wouldn't have been able to get this opportunity. Qingling actually felt a sense of gratitude towards Xiandao. He would rather be grateful to an outsider, an enemy, or someone who almost killed him than to the so-called Qing family. Qingling has truly excluded herself from the Qing family. The sky was vast under the cold moon, and 7 days had passed by the time Xiandao arrived at the seaside. Xiandao mainly walked around, stopping frequently to admire the scenery and appreciate the beauty of Hanuishan. These sights made him marvel at the power of Hanuishan. Some exceptionally talented children in this environment reached the heavenly origin realm at the age of 10 or so, and some even reached the saint realm. Unbelievable. The environment of the 9 heavens is indeed much better than that of the 10 earths, not to mention the greatly earth where Xiandao was initially located, which is worlds apart. Upon arriving at the seashore, Xiandao found a boatman, bought a boat, stood at the bow, and sailed against the wind and waves towards the holy land of 10,000 spirits. The holy land of all spirits is overseas. Xiao Qi said it's not far from the mainland, but that's relative to cultivators. For ordinary boatmen, it's still quite far. Looking at the scenery on the sea, with its blue sky, white clouds, and gentle breeze, Xiandao was in no hurry. He stood on the small boat, which shot out like an arrow. A day later, Xiandao saw the so-called holy land of 10,000 spirits. On the high seas, a white mist hangs in the air year-round. Ordinary boatmen who enter this place will lose their way, while those who cultivate themselves will be trapped here. This is the restriction of the holy land of all spirits. The island at the center is hidden, standing serenely apart from the world. Upon seeing the restriction, Xiandao shook his head and said, although the restriction can confuse people, the combination is too poor. Moreover, This restriction is very old, and many parts are damaged. Why not repair it? This restriction couldn't hold Li Xiandao back at all. On the restricted mountain peak, Li Xiandao had comprehended far too many restrictions. Now, these were nothing but child's play in his eyes. Standing at the bow, Li Xiandao maneuvered the ship, constantly weaving through the barriers and avoiding the attack restrictions within the enchantments. Li Xiandao easily entered the interior of the myriad spirits' holy land. This is far too lax. Li Xiandao frowned. It wasn't just that he was very familiar with the restrictions, but the key issue was that this misty restriction was too loose. Leaving aside Li Xiandao, anyone who has been immersed in the art of restricting magic for hundreds of years can enter this place. How could the restrictions on such a sacred land be so lax? What happened? Li Xiandao wondered. He came to the shore, moored the boat, and stepped onto the land of the myriad spirits' sacred land. Everywhere you look, there is a scene of desolation. In this vast holy land, the port is unguarded, the docks are abandoned, and most of the houses on the island are broken. Only the flowers and plants are in full bloom. Has this holy land of 10,000 spirits been completely abandoned with no disciples left? Li Xiandao asked in surprise. He flew up into the air and looked down at the island. It is very large, capable of housing at least several 100,000 people. It has 4 ports, and there is a majestic mountain on the island, which looks like a real dragon lying on the island. Moreover, looking down from above, the island is truly a riot of colors, with 100 flowers blooming in competition. There was only one thing that puzzled Li Xiandao. Insufficient spiritual energy. It's not that the spiritual energy is inferior to the average level of Hanuitian, but rather that it doesn't meet the standards of those 10 spiritual energy dragon veins. With 10 spiritual energy dragon veins on this island, plus the suppression of restrictions, the spiritual energy here should be hundreds of times, or even tens of times, greater than that of the outside world. In reality, this place is just like the outside world. It is 3 to 5 times more concentrated than on land, but the spiritual energy on the sea is inherently more concentrated than on land. 10 spiritual energy dragon veins have disappeared. Li Xiandao looked around and realized that there was truly no one in this holy land of 10,000 spirits. He took out the contract and began looking for a host to sign it. Right on this island. The contract shows there are no errors. However, Li Xiandao didn't find anyone. Following the contract's guidance, he arrived at a grave halfway up the mountain. The tomb of the 4th generation leader of the holy land of all spirits. Li Xiandao checked the contract again. It wasn't voided, which meant the person wasn't dead. Buried here, feigning death? Li Xiandao reached out and tapped the tombstone. Bang bang bang. Brother, an old friend is here. Don't die, come out and get some fresh air, Li Xiandao said softly. Chapter 291 Ouyang Ran. Part 2. Li Xiandao did not respond to his first call. He wasn't in a hurry and continued to tap twice with his hand. It's like knocking on a door. The difference is that he is now knocking on a tombstone. Knock knock knock. Li Xiandao flicked his fingers a few times, and the tombstone emitted a dull sound. Brother, don't hide from debts from 30,000 years ago. Come out and talk about it, Li Xiandao continued. 3 strikes and you're out. Li Xiandao has already invited him twice. If he still doesn't come out, he won't invite him a 3rd time. The 3rd time was digging up graves. Fortunately, the person in the cemetery did not require Li Xiandao to invite him a 3rd time. The old man has been dead for 30,000 years. Why are you calling me back to life? A dissatisfied voice rang out. Li Xiandao calmly said, I'm here to collect debts. I still owe someone a debt. A voice filled with doubt, shock, and confusion rang out. Did you get confused from sleeping in the coffin? Li Xiandao asked. A little bit. The voice said dejectedly, and then Li Xiandao saw the soil churn, a coffin lid emerge, and a pale withered hand gripped the edge of the coffin and lifted the lid. Boom. The coffin lid was quite heavy. It slammed to the ground, and inside lay a withered old man with a full head of silver hair and wrinkled skin, looking just like a dried corpse. The only difference was that the old man opened his eyes, looked at the sunlight, and murmured, "I haven't seen the sun for 30,000 years, and now I'm actually a little unaccustomed to it." Xiandao stood before the tombstone, looked at the old man, and asked, "Are you Ouyang Ran?" "Yes, little one. Who are you?" Ouyang Ran asked. "People from the Heaven and Earth Bank." Xiandao said calmly. Heaven and Earth Bank. Old man Ouyang Ran's eyes widened instantly as he stared intently at Xiandao. He hadn't heard that name in 30,000 years. "Are you from Tiandi Money Exchange?" Ouyang Ran asked carefully. "This is the contract you signed back then. Do you remember it?" Xiandao handed the contract to old man Ouyang Ran. Ouyang Ran looked closely, and memories flooded back. He murmured to himself, "I thought you had disappeared. We've always been here. But why are you burying yourself?" Xiandao asked. "I'm a dead man now. Isn't it normal for a dead man to be buried in the ground?" Ouyang Ran replied to Xian. "Why did they die? Why has the holy land of 10,000 spirits become like this?" Xiandao asked. "Don't ask too many questions, I won't tell you." Ouyang Ran refused to answer. "All right, let's talk about the contract. You've breached it. According to the contract, the myriad spirits' holy land now belongs to our Heaven and Earth Bank." Xiandao didn't mind and changed the subject. "Here you go. It's just a rundown place, not worth much money. If you want it, come and take it," Ouyang Ran said listlessly, looking around. "As the fourth-generation leader of the myriad spirits' holy land, aren't you saddened that the myriad spirits' holy land has become like this and has been handed over to our Heaven and Earth Bank?" Xiandao asked. "Alas, what can I, a dead man, do if my descendants are so disappointing?" Ouyang Ran said regretfully. "Fine, since this holy land of 10,000 spirits belongs to our Heaven and Earth Bank, then please leave." Xiandao's demeanor suddenly changed, and he said coldly. Ouyang Ran's face fell, and she said, "I'm a dead man, sleeping in this cemetery, and you still want to drive me away? You don't have to leave, but tell me where those 10 spiritual energy dragon veins went." Xiandao asked, a smirk playing on his lips hidden beneath his mask. "It got swallowed up," Ouyang Ran said, clicking her tongue. "Why was the holy land of 10,000 spirits destroyed?" Xiandao continued to ask. Ouyang Ran's expression changed, and she said, "What if I don't answer?" "If you don't answer, move out. The world is vast, with plenty of green hills and clear waters. You can be buried anywhere," Xiandao said directly. "The holy land of 10,000 spirits was destroyed because of a great war," Ouyang Ran said helplessly. "What kind of battle?" Xiandao continued to ask. "I can't say any more. There are some things I can't say right now, so please don't ask." Ouyang Ran's expression was helpless, but her words were very firm. "All right, you've passed. From now on, the holy land of 10,000 spirits belongs to my Heaven and Earth Bank, while you continue to lie in the graveyard." Xiandao didn't ask any more questions. He was certain that a great war had taken place 30,000 years ago, and the holy land of 10,000 spirits was destroyed at that time. Ouyang Ran also dug her own grave, built a coffin, and buried herself in the ground. This burial lasted for 30,000 years. "All right, let's keep to ourselves. The holy land of 10,000 spirits is yours now. I'll continue lying in my coffin." Ouyang Ran quickly closed the coffin lid, then sank into the ground, the yellow earth covering him. A grave appeared again. Only the scent of the earth tells you that the grave has just been renovated. Seeing this, Xiandao didn't disturb Ouyang Ran. He must have a secret, keeping himself hidden. He didn't know what it was about. But Xiandao didn't want to get involved. He had now taken back the myriad spirits' holy land, and the contract was null and void. Boom. Xiandao walked to the dock and began to establish the Heaven and Earth Bank in the holy land of 10,000 spirits. Rumble. The Heaven and Earth Bank stirred up spiritual energy, causing continuous explosions that formed waves, transformed into raging flames, and surged forth. Unlike its location on the grasslands, the Heaven and Earth Bank now stands in the void above the Holy Land of 10,000 Spirits, and Xiandao has no intention of moving it away anytime soon. Xiandao will not move the Heaven and Earth Bank until the fifth mountain peak is unsealed. So after establishing the Heaven and Earth Bank here, the first thing he did was to repair the restrictions. Previously, Xiandao felt that the restrictions in the protective formation of the myriad spirits' holy land were too poor and too old. Now he understands that it's no wonder it's old after 30,000 years without any repairs. At this moment, Xiandao transformed into a powerful deity of restrictions and began to repair this large protective formation. Something's not right. Fix it. If anything is not suitable, please modify it. Correct any errors. Fill in the gaps where there are imperfections. Using his vast knowledge, Xiandao began to continuously strengthen the formation. Xiandao personally replaced all the old, broken, or incompatible restrictions. After a day and a night of repairs, it was as if Xiandao had completely revamped the formation. Its current power is terrifying. At least those at the Cave Heaven realm should not even think about entering. It takes a great deal of effort to enter a realm beyond the Cave Heavens. For the time being, the Holy Land of all spirits can be preserved, preventing it from becoming as lax as before. Looking at the formation that he had personally modified and which was now unrecognizable, Xiandao nodded in satisfaction and said, "That's more like it." He entered the Holy Land of 10,000 Spirits, stepped into the Heaven and Earth Bank, found Xiao and said, "We can start business in the cold moon heaven now. I also want to unseal the fifth mountain peak." Chapter 292 Husband, Drink Your Medicine. Part 3. After Xiandao unsealed the fourth restricted mountain peak, he obtained 100 blood-red pocket watches. He did not throw them away in the 10 lands, but kept them all this time. The purpose was to enter the 9 heavens, begin receiving new guests, develop business, and expand the Heaven and Earth Money Shop. Now that they've entered the cold moon heaven, the Heaven and Earth Money Shop has a foothold. In order to expand his business, Xiandao felt it was time to throw away those 100 blood-red pocket watches. Xiao nodded and said, "It would be fine to throw out these 100 pocket watches now." Xiao started releasing all the pocket watches, letting them find suitable owners and bring them to the Heaven and Earth Money Shop to expand the shop's business. Xiandao suddenly remembered something and asked, "I wonder how much it will cost to unseal the fifth mountain peak." Xiandao felt that the fifth mountain peak had to be unsealed, otherwise the Heaven and Earth Bank would be unable to cross boundaries, and it would be very troublesome if they wanted to leave Honua Heaven and enter other worlds. Xiandao doesn't want to cross over into another field again. When the fifth mountain peak is unsealed, the Heaven and Earth Money House can go wherever it wants, doing whatever it pleases, completely free. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Xiao said, "Unsealing the fifth mountain peak requires 10,000 spiritual energy dragon veins, and they need to be of the highest quality." Xiandao frowned. 10,000 top-grade spiritual energy dragon veins. That's a bit too much of a price to pay. No wonder Xiao said in the 10 lands that Xiandao could never unseal the fifth mountain peak no matter what. Xiandao did not see a single one of the spiritual energy dragon veins in the 10 places. The formation of a spiritual dragon vein requires an extremely large amount of spiritual energy to gather and remain throughout the year. Once it condenses and takes shape, it develops sentience, and the spiritual energy, like a dragon, can be endlessly regenerated. This is just the beginning. The spiritual energy dragon vein can also grow gradually, from 1 meter to 10 meters, and then to hundreds of meters, thousands of meters, and tens of thousands of meters. A 10,000-meter-long spiritual energy dragon vein is the best kind of spiritual energy dragon vein. Xiandao needs to collect 10,000 of them to unlock the fifth mountain peak. Xiandao's expression immediately turned ugly. This seems difficult. No, that's exactly what's difficult. Even though the spiritual energy is very abundant in the cold moon heaven, it is not an easy task to gather 10,000 top-grade spiritual energy dragon veins. You have plenty of time, there's no rush, Xiaoqi comforted Li Xian. Li Xiandao could only think this way. Slowly accumulate, little by little, to gradually unseal the fifth mountain peak. It seems that allowing Tiandi Qianzhuang to freely cross boundaries is not an easy task, Li Xiandao remarked. Xiaoqi smiled without saying a word. Xiaoqi threw out 100 blood-red pocket watches, which flew to various places, and then the heaven and earth bank fell silent. Everyone is working hard to cultivate themselves, including Li Xiandao, who is also working hard to cultivate himself. Despite breaking through to the 10th level of the cave heaven, this realm is insignificant in the cold moon heaven. Li Xiandao still needs to continue improving himself. His 10 heavens encompass 10 lands and 10 great worlds, unprecedented in history. To fully unleash the power of the 10 heavens, Li Xiandao needs to study them slowly and diligently. Therefore, Tiandi Qianzhuang entered a brief period of quiet. Even under the cold moonlight, life went on as usual, unchanged by the arrival of Li Xiandao and the Heaven and Earth Money House. The Qin and Qing families, both imperial clans, searched everywhere for traces of Li Xiandao and Yu Tianxia, but to no avail. Even when calculating innate divine arts, the secrets of heaven are shrouded in mystery, and nothing can be discerned. The Qin and Qing families could only search in silence, while the Qin family patriarch, filled with rage and nowhere to vent his anger, returned to the moon in frustration. Qingling was forgotten. He stayed at the old Qing family house, quietly studying the cultivation techniques left behind by the ancient sage Zhuangzhou. However, he didn't want to cause trouble, but his wife caused him trouble instead. Because Qingling disliked the wife arranged by his family, he treated her coldly and didn't even touch her. His wife was not a good person either. She couldn't stand being alone, and when she met Qing Yun, a talented young man in the family, she hooked up with him after a few words and cheated on Qingling. Qingling knew that his wife couldn't stand being alone, so he avoided seeing her and didn't have any contact with her on a regular basis. However, Qing Yun had no intention of letting Qingling go. When Qingling was in power, he was extremely arrogant and looked down on Qing Yun's talent. He once refused Qing Yun's request and did not want to help Qing Yun suppress other fellow disciples. From then on, Qing Yun harbored a secret resentment towards Qingling. However, Qingling was a highly skilled cultivator and one of the 10 tigers of the Qing family, while Qing Yun was just an ordinary member of the Qing family. They were not even in the same league, and Qing Yun had no chance to take revenge. However, now that Qingling has fallen on hard times, plummeting from the clouds to the mud, Qing Yun's mind starts to wander. He actively seduced the wife that his family had bestowed upon Qingling. After several nights of pleasure, Qing Yun coldly said, "It's not good to keep having affairs like this. If you get caught, your reputation will be completely ruined." "What should we do then?" Qingling, the wife, asked, her heart completely focused on Qing Yun. "Qingling must die. Only when he dies will you be free. Although you will become a widow, I will still marry you, and then we can live like a pair of immortals," Qing Yun tempted. "But, if we use ordinary methods to kill Qingling, the family will find out," Qingling's wife said worriedly. She wasn't worried about whether Qingling was dead or alive. She was worried that Qingling's death would be discovered by the family. "It's all right. Here's a blood-dissolving pill. Dissolve it in the medicine and have Qingling drink it. This medicine is colorless and tasteless. Once Qingling takes it, he will die from blood depletion, and the family won't be able to detect it. Besides, Qingling is already a cripple, so the family won't care," Qing Yun continued to coax. "Okay, I'll go feed him his medicine." Qingling's wife's eyes lit up and she immediately agreed. She believed that her lover would not deceive her. Qingling's small courtyard consisted of just 1 yard and an old locust tree. It was quite dilapidated, but Qingling lived there very happily. At least no one bothered him. It was so much better for him to quietly comprehend the cultivation technique alone. But today, his nominal wife came and brought him a bowl of medicine. "My lord, come and drink your medicine." His beautiful wife walked over with a smile, carrying a bowl containing brewed herbs. Qingling watched coldly, without uttering a word, looking at the wife that his family had bestowed upon him. "My husband, this is a miraculous medicine that I brewed myself. It can heal your injuries. I know you don't like me, but we are husband and wife now. Only if you get better can we live out the rest of our lives in peace." The wife comforted her in a gentle voice. Qingling looked at the bowl of medicine and said, "Haven't you read any unofficial histories?" The wife was taken aback. What did that mean? Some unofficial histories record that there was a husband named Wu Dalong who was poisoned to death by his wife. "Are you trying to poison me so you can live happily ever after with your lover?" Qingling sneered. Chapter 293 The First Guest. Part 4. Qingling's words startled his wife, who stammered, "What are you talking about? I have no idea." Qingling sneered and said, "If you don't know, why are you so afraid? I was just trying to help you by brewing herbal medicine, and you accused me of trying to harm you. I'm your wife." The wife cried, tears streaming down her face, her voice filled with sorrow. Ku Qingling is cold and ruthless. He is not moved even by a woman as beautiful as the Moon Angel, let alone this woman who wants to harm him. "Get down. I can see through your little tricks at a glance. This is the first and the last time." Qingling warned coldly. Even though his cultivation had been destroyed, his fierce eyes were still full of murderous intent. "I." The wife was startled and held back her tears. She left with the medicine, looking aggrieved. Qingling watched her departing figure and said, "Someone must be behind this, trying to poison me. It seems that even if I become a cripple, some petty people still won't tolerate me." After Qingling's cultivation was destroyed, he became disillusioned with the coldness of human relationships and the fickleness of the world. All the conspiracies he once suppressed, those who once tried to curry favor with him, and those who once used tricks to fall into his hands are now eyeing him covetously, wanting revenge. A place teeming with snakes and rats, littered with garbage, how can anyone find a place to settle down? Qingling sighed, but now he was trapped and unable to escape. They could only endure it silently. "Let's wait a little longer," Qingling sighed. Buzz. The next second, a blood-red pocket watch appeared in front of Qingling. Qingling was taken aback. What was this thing? The Heaven and Earth Bank is a place where you can have your wishes fulfilled. Crush the pocket watch and enter the Heaven and Earth Bank. A message came from the pocket watch, making Qingling's eyes widen. She reached out and grabbed it, extremely excited. A serendipitous encounter. Qingling had read many unofficial histories, official histories, and biographies, so she was quite familiar with the old man's concept of serendipitous encounters. He has now undoubtedly had a miraculous encounter. Will I meet a deity? Qingling felt that the pocket watch of the Heaven and Earth Bank was mysterious and elusive, so the owner of the Heaven and Earth Bank must be a great power in this world. He could never have imagined that this powerful figure of the era was the same mysterious masked expert who had shattered his confidence. Click. Qingling did not hesitate. He had nothing to lose now, so he had nothing to fear. Even if the pocket watch was a trap, he would jump in. The moment he crushed the pocket watch, a burst of blood-red gas erupted from it, enveloping Qingling and causing his vision to turn red before he vanished into chaos. In the endless void, there stands a colossal palace, incredibly mysterious and powerful, inspiring awe in anyone who beholds it. In front of the palace stood a man and a woman. The woman was like a fairy, noble and untouchable. The man, wearing a mask, stood with his hands behind his back, watching coldly. It's him. Qingling was shocked and widened her eyes, trying to see Xiandao more clearly. Boom. But the next second, he fell into a large hall. Welcome to the Heaven and Earth Bank. Xiandao greeted Qingling. He never expected that his first guest at Hanuishan would be Qingling. This is the person I let off the hook before. Moreover, judging from his appearance, he's not doing well. His cultivation has been destroyed. It's you're the owner of this Heaven and Earth Bank. Qingling looked at Xian in disbelief. Sit down, we can talk slowly, Xiandao said calmly. Qingling took a deep breath to calm herself down, then sat down opposite Xiandao. I remember when I spared your life. You were still at the 9th heaven level of cultivation? Xiandao looked at Qingling in surprise. Qingling smiled helplessly when she thought of this and said, "If you had killed me back then, I would have been even more grateful to you." Xiandao silently watched Qingling, wanting to hear her story. Qingling slowly recounted her experiences over this period of time. It was full of twists and turns. A near-death experience. Xiandao felt aggrieved for him. His cultivation was destroyed, he was banished to the cold palace, his relatives and friends were scattered, and he was all alone. The wife given to him by his family was not a docile person. She cheated on him several times and even tried to poison him like Wu Dolong's wife. This guy is incredibly unlucky. Xiandao's evaluation of Qingling. However, your luck has turned around now. I was able to enter the cold moon heaven thanks to your world coordinates, so tell me what you want, and I will consider it accordingly, Xiandao asked. I need time, Qingling said firmly. It takes time. Xiandao looked at him in surprise. He had thought that Qingling would ask the Heaven and Earth Bank to heal his injuries, but he didn't expect that it would only take time. What do you need the time for? Xiandao asked curiously. To transform into a butterfly. Qingling said firmly. I obtained the secret method of the ancient sage Zhuangzhou, which uses the physical body as a furnace to reshape a body into a perfect one. This technique is called butterfly transformation, Qingling told him truthfully. I can give you time, a moment. Is 100 years enough? Xiandao asked. That's enough. Qingling looked at Xian excitedly. But what can you give me in return? Xiandao continued to ask. Qingling was taken aback, then shook her head and said, I have nothing of value right now, and I have nothing to offer in exchange. Considering we've known each other for a while, I'll make an exception and give you an advance on what you'll need to complete this transaction. Xiandao snapped his fingers, signaling Xiao Qi to prepare the contract. After all, you're in such a miserable state now, I have to take some responsibility, Xiandao said calmly. Qingling shook her head and said, This is a person's fate, and you can't blame anyone else. Xiandao remained non-committal, saying calmly, I will give you 100 years, and in an instant, I will burn you to allow you to go through the process of transforming into a butterfly. Qingling listened silently. This was the benefit he had received. Otherwise, he would have had to pay a certain price. After you transform into a butterfly, you will surely reach even greater heights. You will then need to collect 10,000 top-grade spiritual energy dragon veins for me, Xiandao said casually. Qingling's pupils shrank as she looked at Xiandao in disbelief. 10,000 spiritual dragon veins. And they're all top quality. This. Qingling's breathing quickened as he calculated something seriously. Suddenly, he looked up and said, Deal. No matter what, he must transform into a butterfly. Otherwise, he will be secretly harmed. Poisoning is child's play. There are many more cruel methods that Qingling believes the villains in the Qing family can employ. 10,000 spiritual dragon veins are very rare, but he believed in the power of his butterfly transformation and was sure he could accomplish it. Xiandao said with satisfaction, I'm starting to admire you a bit now. You're very decisive. Let's sign the contract. Xiandao handed the contract prepared by Xiao Qi to Qingling, and gently put down the pen. Once the contract is signed, the consequences of breaking it will be enormous, something you can't afford. Remember that. Xiandao said softly. Qingling smiled slightly and decisively wrote down her name. Chapter 294 Qingling after transforming into a butterfly. Part 5. Requesting monthly tickets. In the Hall of Time, Xiandao brought Qingling here. Boom. The door to the Hall of Time was pushed open, and Xiandao pointed inside saying, Go in. You have 100 years. Seize the opportunity, or it might not be enough. Qingling said firmly, This is my only chance right now, how could I possibly let it slip away? He stepped into the Hall of Time, and as the doors slammed shut, countless lights flashed within, and time began to accelerate. Xiandao adjusted Qingling's internal structure to take 100 years, while the external structure took a minute. The time consumed was Xiandao's own lifespan. He stepped out of the Hall of Time and looked at the majestic mountains, which were incredibly beautiful. A minute passed quickly, and Xiandao unexpectedly saw a silkworm pupa struggling to break free of its restraints on a tree. A butterfly was slowly transforming, spreading its beautiful wings, and struggling to break free of the pupa's shackles, soaring into the sky. Xiandao suddenly turned his head and looked towards the Hall of Time. A figure emerged. Qingling. He seemed like a completely different person at this moment. 100 years had passed, and he seemed to have not changed anything, but upon closer inspection, it was discovered that he had changed everything. His old body was like a cage, shackled his steps forward, but now, he has broken free of his old body and emerged as a butterfly. 1 minute passed for Xiandao, while 100 years passed in the time hall. Qingling suddenly turned into 120 years old. As time passed, his aura became more composed. With one step, energy surged within Qingling's body, flowing into her dantian. His cultivation underwent a complete transformation, breaking through the 10th level of the cave heaven realm and entering the next level. However, Qingling discovered that he still couldn't see Xiandao clearly. Even though Xiandao's cultivation was only at the 10th level of the cave heaven, he still felt that he was no match for Xiandao at all. It was as if Xiandao's punch would cause his body to shatter. It seems the transformation into a butterfly was very successful, Xiandao said casually. Yes, it was very easy. I've gained a lot from this ordeal. If it were me before, I would never have reached this level. But now I've been through the mud and faced life and death, and I've gained profound insights, Qingling said with emotion. Now that you've transformed into butterflies, remember our promise, Xiandao said calmly. I will always remember, and never forget. And I will use all my strength to obtain 10,000 top-grade spiritual dragon veins, Qingling said firmly. Very good, I'll get you a mount. It should go out and see the world. Xiandao suddenly clapped his hands and summoned Master Donkey. Lord Donkey was cultivating when Xiandao's voice came. It jumped up and immediately turned into lightning, rushing over. Master, you wanted to see me? Lord Donkey arrived and asked respectfully. Xiandao did not answer Lord Donkey, but introduced him to Qingling. This is one of my subordinates. It has a great ability to find where there are treasures, which will be of great help to you in finding the spiritual energy dragon vein. Qingling looked at Lord Donkey in surprise. This was a powerful demon whose cultivation had reached the 9th level of the heavenly cave. This is because Master Donkey had been diligently cultivating, and after entering the cold moon heaven, he began to make rapid progress. I couldn't ask for more, Qingling agreed. Xiandao then looked at Lord Donkey and said, From now on, you and Qingling will fight side by side to complete the tasks I have assigned to you. The donkey readily agreed, raising one hoof and saying, Master, rest assured, I will definitely cooperate well with this brother and help you find the spiritual dragon vein. Xiandao said with satisfaction, Now you may leave. Qingling and Lord Donkey disappeared together in the heaven and earth bank. Xiandao watched their departing figures and murmured, I don't expect you to find 10,000 top-grade spiritual energy dragon veins in a short time. Finding 1,000 will suffice. The short time that Xiandao mentioned refers to within 3 years. Because 10,000 top-grade spiritual energy dragon veins are extremely rare, Xiandao was prepared for a protracted battle. Qingling is one preparation. Xiandao will also make other preparations. He will not place all his hopes on Qingling. The Qing family's old residence. In the dilapidated courtyard, Qingling and Lord Donkey appeared. The donkey was very strong, with muscular build and thick, black hair as smooth as silk. He spoke in a human voice, saying, You're doing really badly, brother. Qingling sat down and said helplessly, Things weren't going so well before, but things are better now. Master Donkey also sat on the stone bench, just like Qingling. There weren't even any chairs in the courtyard, just 4 stone benches, which was a perfunctory arrangement. But it suited the donkey perfectly. It sat down like a human, with its 2 front hooves on its chest, and asked, "Brother, how many spiritual dragon veins does Master want you to find?" 10,000 top-grade spiritual energy dragon veins, Qingling said. Master is really greedy, the donkey muttered to itself. Having spent a long time with the 8 great demons, it knew that spiritual energy dragon veins were rare, let alone top-grade ones. How many men does your master have? Qingling suddenly asked. What? Lord Donkey looked at Qingling warily. Why was he asking about this? I met a moon angel before, who was also your master's subordinate. Now that I've met you, that's why I'm asking, Qingling explained. Moon angel, she is the most beautiful woman under master's command, but she is still not as pretty as Little Seven, said Lord Donkey. Qingling nodded as soon as she thought of Xiao Qi, and said, Indeed. Moon Angel's beauty is that of a typical mature woman, with a devilish figure and extremely alluring charm. But Hopper is no less stunning. She has a great figure and an even more radiant face. Most importantly, her smile is incredibly infectious. Xiao Qi's smile is like 100 flowers blooming in spring. It makes you feel refreshed, amazed, and beautiful at first glance. My master has many skilled men under his command, and I am still very weak. My sworn brothers are all more powerful than me, said Lord Donkey. Qingling seemed to be deep in thought. It seemed that the owner of this heaven and earth bank had many experts under his command. Then who is the most powerful person under your master? Qingling asked curiously. I don't know. It could be that bald guy, or the old Taoist priest, or even the young man with the Overlord blade. And my elder brother, Demon Frog, is also very powerful. There are too many experts to count. Master Donkey was a little troubled. Qingling had gained some understanding of the experts under Li Xiandao's command and wanted to continue communicating with Master Donkey. But the courtyard gate was kicked open the next second. Boom. The gate was broken into more than a dozen pieces, which were scattered on the ground. Qingling's expression turned cold as she stared at the newcomer. Lord Donkey grinned and said, Is this a provocation? Qingling, you piece of trash, get out here. A smug and arrogant voice rang out from outside the courtyard. I'll be right back. Qingling took a deep breath, said to Lord Donkey, and then strode out. Chapter 295 Robbing My Own Home. Part 6. Qingling left the courtyard without saying a word, walked up to Qingyun, and slapped him hard across the face. Snap. Qingyun staggered from the blow, glaring at Qingling. How dare you hit me? Snap. Qingling slapped Qingyun again, this time on the other cheek, causing it to swell up high. Your cultivation has recovered? Qingyun was shocked. The first time he could say he was caught off guard, but the second time, it wasn't that he was caught off guard, but that Qingling's cultivation had recovered. Snap. Another slap sent Qingyun staggering, falling to the ground with a bruised and swollen face, blood gushing out. Spare me. Qingyun chickened out. Qingling's cultivation had recovered, and he was completely helpless against her. He had only just entered the legendary realm. How could he be a match for Qingling? Die. Qingling uttered his first word, simple and direct, expressing his meaning. Click. Clean and swift, he grabbed Qingyun's head, twisted it violently, and braced it completely like a pretzel. Qingyun is dead. Qingling was that decisive and efficient, without wasting words. He killed a small fry without hesitation. Lord Donkey strolled out, saw this scene, and asked curiously, You're killing someone in your own home, isn't that a big deal? It's very dangerous. Once they discover that my cultivation has recovered, they will definitely cripple me again, Qingling nodded and said. What should we do then? Lord Donkey suggested. How about we run away now? Suddenly, Qingling unleashed his full power, gathering it in his hand before delivering a fierce blow. Boom. The blow struck Qingyun, instantly shattering his body and turning it into smoke. I suddenly remembered something. Qingling shook her hand, seemingly unconcerned about Qingyun's death, and began to talk about other things. What is it? Master Donkey asked. As an imperial family, the Qing family should possess quite a few spiritual dragon veins, Qingling said with a sly smile. He planned to become a trader, completely severing ties with the Qing family, and incidentally, he also wanted to plunder the Qing family. The treasures of imperial families must be guarded by quite a few people, right? Lord Donkey's eyes lit up, but then he said with concern, "It's all right. It's precisely because no one dares to offend the imperial families that they are all too careless or too confident. Besides, isn't there me, the mole, among them?" Qingling analyzed calmly. Lord Donkey raised one of his hooves and said approvingly, "So you're planning to become a traitor, aren't you?" "I've had nothing to do with the Qing family since they crippled me. Let's go loot the Qing family's treasury," Qingling said decisively. "Let's go now, without making any plans?" Master Donkey asked in surprise. "No need for plans anymore. No one will be wary of me. Everyone knows my cultivation has been crippled. No one would expect me to transform into a butterfly," Qingling said as she walked, leading Master Donkey. Master Donkey followed Qingling closely, moving through the interior of the Qing family home. Just as Qingling had said, no one would look at him seriously, and no one would talk to him, because he was now a useless person. Even with an extra donkey, it didn't attract anyone's attention. It's true that Lord Donkey is very good at disguising himself, letting Qingling ride him around the Qing family's stronghold at a leisurely pace. The village of the Qing family is very large, and most of the inhabitants are direct descendants of the Qing family. It is located in a mountain range and was built as a village. The entire village has 1,000 or 2,000 people, all of whom are direct descendants of the Qing family, yet not a single person stopped Qingling from coming up and saying a word to her. If they come up, they will find that Lord Donkey is abnormal. This donkey is too strong, and its demonic aura is hidden under its fur. They will definitely be able to detect it at close range. Unfortunately, even if the donkey walked right past them, they wouldn't bother to give it a second glance, because a good-for-nothing was sitting on the back of the donkey. Seeing this, Qingling sneered. These people would pay the price for their indifference. They soon arrived at the mountain range where the Qing family hid their treasure. Hiding in a corner, Qingling whispered, "This mountain range has been hollowed out. It contains the Qing family's accumulated wealth over the years. Apart from daily expenses and rewards for the children, there is still a lot of worry left." Lord Donkey exclaimed excitedly, "I can sense it. So many treasures. Every vein in my body is throbbing with excitement." "But the problem now is, we can't get in," Qingling said regretfully. At the entrance to the Guardian's treasure, sat two powerful old men. Qingling had no confidence in getting past them to enter. "If you can't get in, it's useless. All the treasures are just empty talk." "You can't get in, but I can," Lord Donkey said proudly. "You can go in?" Qingling looked at Donkey Master with surprise and climbed onto his back. "That's right," Master said, "I can find treasures, but I can also enter treasure lands. I've never lacked treasures on my cultivation path, and that's all thanks to this skill." "Hold me tight," the donkey said proudly. It was able to transform from an ordinary donkey into the powerful demon it is today, all thanks to this ability. Discover the treasure, then enter and steal it. Qingling excitedly hugged Donkey Lord's neck, pressing herself tightly against him. Buzz. Lord Donkey suddenly shuddered and vanished. At that moment, the two old men guarding the treasure gate frowned and looked at each other. "What did you discover?" "I didn't find anything. There are energy fluctuations." "You don't actually think anyone could get here through all the layers of martial law, do you?" "No, outsiders absolutely cannot get here." "That'll do." The two old people closed their eyes again and quietly began their meditation. They are both right. Outsiders cannot enter this place, and it is under strict security. But what if the problem lies within the Qing family itself? You can guard against anything, but it's hard to guard against a thief within your own family. Qingling and Lord Donkey successfully entered the Qing family's treasure vault. A rich spiritual energy swept over us, and what came into view was an extremely awe-inspiring sight of hundreds of phantom dragons intertwined inside the mountain range. A spiritual dragon vein. 500. This greatly excited Qingling and Lord Donkey. Hurry up and collect them, these are all what the master needs. Lord Donkey said excitedly, and began to collect the spiritual energy from the dragon veins one by one. Each of the spiritual energy dragon veins here is tens of thousands of meters long, occupying most of the entire mountain range. They are incredibly vast. Qingling and Lord Donkey quickly collected the items and put them into their magic treasures, extremely excited. 500. That makes 500 now, so it seems that 10,000 spiritual dragon veins are not a difficult task after all. These spiritual dragon veins were all collected by the Qing family before, and they had long been docile. They were all stored away without any effort. What excited Qingling even more was that he saw the pseudo-immortal artifact defensive armor he had been wearing before. Take it, I need some defense too. Qingling didn't hesitate and decisively picked it up and put it on. Chapter 296 You Lecherous Donkey. Part 7. Qingling took the pseudo-immortal artifact, the mortal defense suit, and put it on, instantly transforming her demeanor. You belonged to me temporarily before, but now you belong to me permanently, Qingling said firmly. Meanwhile, the donkey was also busy looting other treasures. The entire mountain range is mostly composed of spiritual dragon veins, totaling 500. This is the foundation of the imperial family, reserved for unforeseen needs. But now they've swept everything away, and Lord Donkey and Qingling have no intention of letting go of the rest either. All sorts of treasures, rare and precious items, and magical artifacts. Take it all, whether it's useful or not. In just 10 minutes, the two of them cleared out the entire mountain range. Qingling held a long halberd in his hand, which was even more powerful than his primordial halberd. It was an ancient magic weapon. Although its power could not match that of a pseudo-immortal weapon, it could still sweep away a large area when it was unleashed. This is an imperial artifact. The Qing family produced 2 emperors, and this is the artifact of one of them. It has been kept here and was originally intended for the most outstanding person of this generation. But who would have thought that Qingling would get his hands on it halfway through? Clad in a pseudo-immortal artifact, gleaming with a cold light, its defensive power is astonishing. Wielding an imperial artifact of astonishing power, coupled with the immense strength he gained after transforming into a butterfly, he has truly risen to prominence. From the initial 10 tigers of the Qing family, to the later crippling of their cultivation, and now to their transformation into butterflies, wielding weapons. All of these combined brought Qingling's strength to its peak. It seems I can now go toe-to-toe with the leader of the 10 tigers, Qingling thought to herself, her eyes narrowed. Lord Donkey then swallowed many treasures, and it also discovered countless black sphere-like things in the mountains. What is this? Lord Donkey asked Qingling. Qingling walked over and saw that it was stuck in a crevice in the mountain, and it was not easy to find without careful observation. These are thunder god pearls, containing divine thunder from the 9 heavens. Each one is extremely powerful, Qingling said. Is it very powerful? Lord Donkey tilted his head. Do you want to take it with you? I'm not taking anything with me. I'm leaving the Qing family. The grudges and grievances are all too complicated to explain. The Qing family has been kind to me, but they've also wronged me. So before I leave, let's blow this place up, Qingling said. Blow this place up? Lord Donkey asked in surprise. Yes, blow this place up. Qingling nodded firmly and said, All right, let's blow it up and do something big. Lord Donkey suddenly got excited. He moved the Thunder God Pearl away and began to slowly set up the trap. Qingling was also making arrangements, with more than 100 Thunder God Pearls. Under their arrangement, there would be a Thunder God Pearl at regular intervals throughout the entire mountain range. Come on, I've lit them. They'll explode in about a minute. A lot of people will come here then, so we have to get out of here beforehand, Qingling said loudly, holding Donkey Master in her arms. Master Donkey knew the matter was urgent and dared not delay, so he quickly disappeared into the mountains. Outside the mountains, in the same spot, Donkey Master and Qingling emerged, then fled without a second glance. The two old men guarding the mountain opened their eyes at the same time, looked at each other, and saw the doubt and shock in each other's eyes. The fluctuations have reappeared. In the mountain's treasure trove. We sensed it this time. It seems someone went in. We need to go check, lest someone steal anything from the mountains. You're overthinking it. The person who can steal treasures from the mountains right under our noses hasn't been born yet. The two elderly people worked together to open the door to the mountain treasure trove. What comes into view are rows of dark purple thunder pearls. Everything else was empty. The two of them were dumbfounded, their breath caught in their throats. It's been stolen. That was such a clean steal. For the first time, the two elderly people felt as if their hearts were about to stop. This treasure trove is now cleaner than their crotches. The next second, their expressions changed drastically. They stared in disbelief at the treasure trove of the mountains. Boom! Lei Shengzhu exploded. Not just one. Instead, more than 100 erupted simultaneously. The force generated sent the two old men flying, coughing up blood, and also blasted the mountain range apart. Rumble! The earth shook violently, and countless people were terrified. They all looked towards the treasure vault of the Divine Soul mountain range and rushed over. What happened? I don't know, it seems there's a problem with the treasure vault. Go check it out immediately, seal off the surrounding area, and capture any outsiders on sight. Many people headed straight for the mountain's treasure trove, moving very quickly. But among these people, there was one person who was the opposite of them. On Donkey Master's back, Qingling was heading out, unlike the people who had rushed over. In this critical moment, no one cares about a useless person, everyone just thinks he's scared. No one would have imagined that Qingling, whose cultivation had been destroyed, could rise again. You Qing family people have been completely fooled by us. Lord Donkey said smugly. It's the Qing family, not me, Qingling said expressionlessly. Should we change the name? Donkey Master ran swiftly, his mouth never idle, chatting with Qingling. No need. This name has witnessed the first half of my life. No matter what, it's what I've experienced, and no one can change it. I'm not used to having another name either, Qingling refused. All right, whatever you want. Hold on tight, I'm going to take you across the void. Lord Donkey led Qingling to a secluded place before beginning to inscribe the restrictions for crossing the void. It dares not inscribe in crowded places. Even the Moon Angel needs 5 seconds to inscribe a restriction that allows it to traverse the void. The Donkey Lord is not very skilled, so it would take at least 30 seconds. It took 30 seconds to depict the scene meticulously, but Qingling frowned, staring intently at the mountain treasure trove behind her. The longer it dragged on, the sooner the people on the other side would realize what was happening. This scoundrel is right here in our village. Seal off the area, activate the Great Formation, and don't let a single rat escape. A furious roar echoed throughout the land. Rumble. At the same time, the restrictions on the old Qing family residence village were put up. Hurry up, if the barrier is completely sealed off, we won't be able to get out, Qingling said anxiously. Don't worry, I've finished carving it. Lord Donkey finally finished carving it, breathed a sigh of relief, and stepped onto it. Hold on tight, and your donkey brother will take you flying. Lord Donkey let out a long howl, beaming with pride, no longer caring about exposing himself. With a burst of demonic energy, he vanished instantly. It's Qingling and that donkey. Someone looked on in shock, noticing the scene where they disappeared. But it was all too late. Lord Donkey carried Qingling across the void, leaving the Qing family's village. The next second, they crashed into a pool of water. Thump! A man and a donkey fell into a clear pool of water, causing a great commotion and a scream. You pervert. No, it's a lecherous donkey. A woman screamed, and a dozen women rushed ashore and surrounded Qingling and the donkey. Chapter 297 The Golden Family. Part 1. Donkey Lord and Qingling were surrounded by more than a dozen women, all of whom were quite powerful, most of them at the legendary realm, and they stared at them with hostile eyes. Where did this lecherous scoundrel come from? How dare you peep at the women of my golden family bathing? A sharp shout rang out, and a young woman with an impressive aura flew over, her body surrounded by golden light, coldly staring at Qingling and Lord Donkey. The Golden Family, that's one of the great demon clans. Qingling exclaimed in shock. She had just escaped from the Qing family, but she never expected to offend the Golden Family so soon. Is this Golden Family powerful? Donkey asked nervously, paddling his hooves in the water. You're incredibly powerful, even more powerful than the Qing family. How did you manage to ferry us across to this place? Qingling said through gritted teeth. Lord Donkey coughed and said, It's because I'm not familiar with it yet. Qingling glared at it irritably, then clasped her hands and said, Fellow members of the Golden Family, we absolutely had no intention of spying. It's just that we were crossing the void just now and got the direction wrong, and fell into this pool without seeing anything clearly. The woman from the Golden Family sneered. Do you think I'd believe that explanation? Qingling looked on helplessly. It was like mud falling into his pants. Even if it wasn't excrement, it was still excrement. Something that can't be explained. Qingling transmitted her voice to Lord Donkey. You are creating a restriction that allows you to cross the void. I will hold them off. Master Donkey nodded and began to secretly carve at the bottom of the pool. It knew it had caused the trouble. The girls were taking a bath when the human and the demon crashed down. Many women hurriedly ran ashore, their clothes disheveled. It couldn't explain itself. Qingling raised his hands, stood on the water and shouted, Fellow members of the Golden Family, I am a member of the Qing family. We have no reason to lie to you. It is truly a misunderstanding. The woman from the Golden Family's expression shifted, and she asked, Are you from the Qing family, an imperial family? What's your name? The woman continued to ask. Qing Hui. Qingling said the name without hesitation. A glint flashed in the eyes of the woman from the Golden Family as she stared at Qingling and said, Qing Hui, the number one of the 10 tigers of the Qing family, is said to be a peerless genius who can arm wrestle with the older generation and even win. He is hailed as the 3rd candidate for the great emperor of the Qing family. Qingling nodded decisively and said loudly, I am Qing Hui, and I won't deny it. The one who peeked at the bodies of all the girls here today is me, Qing Hui. Qingling didn't bother to explain further. After all, Lord Donkey was setting up a barrier to traverse the void, so he didn't need to explain at all. Qing Hui took the blame for this. The woman from the Golden Family gave a cold laugh. You wouldn't admit it just now, but now you're admitting it so readily? I, Qing Hui, have always been someone who dares to take responsibility for my actions. Since you have all discovered this, I will admit it, Qingling said righteously. You speak with such righteous indignation, but I wonder how you intend to compensate my sisters for their reputation and innocence. The woman from the Golden Family said coldly. Qingling frowned and asked, Do you know this young lady's name? The woman from the Golden Family raised her head, a hint of arrogance on her beautiful face, and said, Phoenix Dragon Sparrow. Qingling exclaimed in surprise. The Phoenix Dragon Sparrow, one of the 3 golden flowers of this generation of the Golden Family? That's right, it's me. Phoenix Dragon Sparrow nodded and said, Excuse me, my name is Qing Hui. I greet Sister Long Kei. Qingling cupped her hands in greeting. Who's your sister? You lecherous scoundrel, you've brought shame upon the Qing family. You must give my sisters an explanation for this, or you'll die here today. Huangglonk said coldly, showing no mercy whatsoever. Qingling was shocked. This Phoenix Dragon Sparrow was no pushover. Now that she had gotten involved, and given that this was the territory of the Golden Family, where they were numerous and powerful, he and Lord Donkey were likely to suffer a heavy blow. All right. Fortunately, the next second, Lord Donkey finished inscribing the restriction for traversing the void and exclaimed excitedly. Qingling's face lit up with joy, and she exclaimed loudly, "Sister Phoenix Dragon Sparrow, I, Qing Hui, will definitely compensate for what happened today, but I'm leaving now. If your golden family wants compensation, come find me. I will compensate you once you find me," Qingling laughed heartily. At the same time, a six-pointed star-shaped restriction appeared at the bottom of the pool, causing Lord Donkey and Qingling to disappear instantly. Phoenix Dragon Sparrow's expression changed, and he roared in fury. "Damn it! You dared to run away after peeping at the women of my golden family bathing. Qing Hui, I will kill you." Although Lord Donkey's journey across the void was not smooth and he fell into a farmland, fortunately he did not encounter any danger. Qingling got up from the field and complained, "Can't you be more accurate? You'll get the hang of it after traversing the void a few more times," the Donkey Lord said guiltily. "Let's not do this anymore." If I hadn't been quick-witted and pinned the blame on Qing Hui, that Phoenix Dragon Sparrow would have already gone berserk, Qingling said irritably. "Just how powerful is this golden family?" Lord Donkey asked curiously. "Let me put it this way. The strength of the golden family is a large force formed by the merger of the phoenix and the golden dragon within the demon race, with each supporting the other. The golden dragon broke away from the dragon clan and became independent, but it still supports the Phoenix clan. If the Phoenix Dragon Sparrow were to go berserk, my current strength would be in serious trouble," Qingling said truthfully. If the Phoenix Dragon Sparrow really wanted to kill him, Qingling's strength was not enough. He could only rely on the Emperor's magic weapon and the pseudo-immortal artifact defensive suit to resist. But now that you've pinned the blame on Qing Hui, we're safe for the time being. "Let's go, let's continue our treasure hunt," Master Donkey said cheerfully. "Let's go, there are still 9,500 spiritual energy dragon veins to find." Qingling cheered up and disappeared into the horizon with Lord Donkey. Inside the Heaven and Earth Bank, Xiandao silently watched Donkey Lord and Qingling. He didn't care whether they had offended the Golden Family. What Xiandao was considering was that the Qing family was an imperial family that had produced 2 emperors, and they only had 500 spiritual dragon veins stored. If it were other families, wouldn't they have even fewer? Perhaps it's just that the Qing family has a small amount left. The cold moon heaven is vast and boundless, so there's no need to worry about that, Xiandao comforted himself. At least now we have 500 top-grade spiritual energy dragon veins in our hands. If all else fails, we can plunder the imperial families in Honyue Heaven one by one. If one family has 500 veins, robbing 10 families would yield 5,000 veins. Robbing 20 families would yield 10,000 veins of spiritual energy. Of course, this is a joke. If they really looted that much, Xiandao's men would be surrounded and killed by these imperial families. At that time, Tiandi Qianzhuang will no longer be able to hide it, and many people will start looking for it through the slightest clues. Xiandao still planned to make a fortune quietly. "We have a new guest." Xiaoqi's voice suddenly rang out. Chapter 298, A New Guest. Part 2. Xiandao asked in surprise. "Another guest?" Not long after the 100 pocket watches were distributed, the second customer arrived. That was quite fast. Xiaoqi smiled and said, "Perhaps many people in the cold moon heaven need a miracle." Xiandao asked, "What is this person's name, and what is his identity?" As he asked the question, Xiandao put on a mask, changed his clothes, and walked to the trading hall. Xiaoqi followed Xiandao and said, "The newcomer is called Huang Jioa. She comes from the golden family of Honyue Heaven and has the bloodline of a phoenix. However, because her soul is incomplete, she is in a daze all year round and rarely has a clear mind." Xiandao asked, "Is he an idiot?" "Most of the time she is, but when she is awake, she is normal. It's just that she is awake for very short periods of time," Xiaoqi said regretfully. "So, did she find my Heaven and Earth Bank while she was sober this time?" Xiandao asked. "Yes, this is a very special guest." Xiaoqi nodded and said, Li Xiandao arrived at the trading hall and met Huang Jua, a little chubby. Unlike most slender girls, Huang Jua looks quite round. Her face is very three-dimensional and distinctive, but it's round in both the right and wrong places, making her appear a bit bloated. At this moment, Huang Jua looked at Li Xiandao and Xiao Qi warily, her eyes darting away, not daring to meet Li Xiandao's gaze, and secretly glancing at Xiao Qi with great envy. Which girl doesn't love beauty? Xiao Qi's beauty made Huang Jua feel inferior. She looked at her own bloated body and felt very annoyed, but in the end, she could only sigh helplessly. "Please sit down," Li Xiandao said softly. Huang Jua pointed at herself in surprise. Li Xiandao nodded and said, "You are my guest, so you should naturally sit down." "Can your heaven and earth bank really change my fate?" Huang Jua hurriedly sat down and asked again. Li Xiandao looked at her, his pupils beneath the mask seeming to see right through Huang Jua. Her cultivation level is at the peak of the human immortal realm. Among Han Yueqian's peers, she was inconspicuous, but considering that she spent most of her time being crazy and confused, her cultivation level was unbelievable in Li Xiandao's eyes. The Heaven and Earth Bank can change your destiny, but what are you willing to give up for it? Li Xiandao asked. Huang Jua was speechless. "I'm a madman, I have nothing," Huang Jua said dejectedly. Li Xiandao looked at her calmly and asked, "Would you mind talking about your own affairs?" Huang Jua frowned as she looked at Li Xiandao, reluctant to talk about her past. That's a disgrace. In Huang Jua's eyes, her own body was a huge disgrace, and even a large part of her soul was a disgrace. She was ashamed to mention it. Li Xiandao explained, "I don't want to humiliate you. I just want to know your experience and then see what value you have to do business with my Heaven and Earth Bank." Huang Jua paused for a moment, then said, "I am an ordinary child of the golden family in this generation. When I was born, a phoenix flew over and landed on the parasol tree in front of my house. The clan believed this to be an auspicious sign and looked forward to my birth. But after I was born, my mother and father both died a year later due to an invasion by foreign enemies. I was adopted by the tribe and raised until I was 6 years old. When I was 6 years old, everyone had to be tested on their talent and bloodline concentration. Out of hundreds of children, I won first place. My bloodline concentration was stronger than ever before, reaching the level of ancestral atonement." Huang Jua said this with a bit of pride, but immediately couldn't help but sigh. "I thought I would rise to prominence and become a key member of the family. But during the test, I was also found to have a damaged soul and a scarce original soul. After the test, I couldn't accept the blow and fell into a coma. When I woke up, I was insane for a year." Huang Jua was in great pain. She went insane for a year due to extreme joy and sorrow, which was very cruel for her at the age of 6. "After being in a coma for a year, I woke up for half a month. Just when everyone thought I was cured, I went insane for 3 months. 3 months later, I woke up for 10 days, Huang Jua said calmly. "I've had enough of these years of living a muddled and crazy life. I've tried to change, using my lucid moments to cultivate diligently, but I haven't had much time to cultivate at all. It's only now that I've reached the peak of the human immortal realm," Huang Jua said bitterly. "Because I disgraced the Golden Family when I was acting crazy, they kept suggesting that I be expelled. But because some people objected, the clan tied me up and imprisoned me in a dark and damp dungeon. Every now and then they would throw some food down on me. That's how I became what I am now." Huang Jua finished introducing her life story. The words were brief, but the pain they conveyed was something most people could hardly comprehend. Huang Jua didn't intend for Li Xiandao to empathize with her. When she was lucid, she was more lucid than anyone else, knowing that there was no such thing as empathy in this world. You can't truly empathize with what she's saying unless you experience what she's gone through. She simply hoped that the Heaven and Earth Bank, represented by Li Xiandao, could change her future life. She didn't want to continue living like a madwoman, being kept like a pig or a dog by the Golden Family. So she looked at Li Xiandao with expectant eyes and asked, "Can the Heaven and Earth Bank help me?" Li Xiandao paused for a moment, carefully analyzing Huang Zhou's life experiences and her personal value. Seeing that Li Xiandao remained silent, Huang Zhou's heart sank further. Hope is gone. Li Xiandao looked at Huang Zhou, whose face was ashen, and smiled gently, saying, "Since you've come to the Heaven and Earth Bank, there's naturally a way. I can help you." Huang Zhou's eyes widened in surprise as she looked at Li Xiandao, like a drowning person grabbing onto a lifeline, refusing to let go no matter what. "Can you really help me?" Huang Zhou's voice trembled as she spoke, her heart filled with excitement. In her more than 10 years of life, she had never seen the light at the end of the tunnel. Now that the light had arrived, she was not even sure if this was a dream or reality. "Of course you can. The reason you are so confused is because your bloodline concentration is high, but your original divine soul is incomplete. To a large extent, your original divine spark cannot control this body. You can only act according to instinct, which is why you are crazy and confused," Li Xiandao said, offering his insights. While Huang Zhou was speaking, Li Xiandao was also observing her, continuously using his true energy to penetrate into her body and slowly examine her. He confirmed that the problem was that her original divine soul was incomplete. This is a problem that Li Xiandao might not have been able to solve in the past. However, the original divine soul of the Goddess of Light, which had not yet merged with the heavenly light, gave Li Xiandao inspiration. Tian Guangming did not want to merge with the divine soul of the Goddess of Light, so Li Xiandao stored the divine soul in the treasury. Now, it can be taken out and fused with Huang Zhou to complete the incompleteness of her original divine soul. "I can help you solve your problems. I can give you control of this body. I can free you from your current life of filth and depravity. What about you? What can you give me in exchange for the chance to completely change myself?" Li Xiandao pointed at Huang Zhou, tapping his finger on the platform with a thud, causing Huang Zhou to raise her head and look resolutely at Li Xiandao. Chapter 299 Beating the Heavens. Part 3. My loyalty. I swear in the name of the Divine Phoenix, I will serve you for life. My life and death are in your hands. Huang Zhou stood up and said firmly. She was willing to give up her freedom, her self-respect, and everything else in exchange for this opportunity. A chance to change your destiny. In Huang Zhou's eyes, this was her greatest chance to change her destiny. In this lifetime, we only have a few opportunities to change our destiny. If we don't seize them, they're truly gone forever. Li Xiandao looked at Huang Zhou. She really had no other bargaining chips besides mortgaging herself. Li Xiandao nodded and said, "I don't believe in your divine phoenix. I only believe in the contract of the Heaven and Earth Bank. You sign it and then hand over your soul essence to me, and that will be fine." "No problem." Huang Zhou agreed immediately without hesitation. Shao Qi handed the prepared contract to Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao slowly pushed the contract to Huang Zhou and said, "Sign this contract. From now on, your life and death will be in my hands. If you work for me without worry, you will be safe and sound, and I will reward you." Huang Zhou signed decisively, looked firmly at Li Xiandao, and called out, "Master." Li Xiandao looked at the bold, unrestrained characters on the contract. Unlike the gentle handwriting of women, Huang Zhou's handwriting was even more unrestrained than that of men. This reflects her anxious state of mind. She hoped that Li Xiandao would help her resolve her current predicament. Li Xiandao took back the contract, handed it to Shao Qi, and said, "Go to the treasury and bring back the soul of the Goddess of Light." Shao Qi nodded, then turned and left. Huang Zhou stared at Shao Qi with envy in her eyes. This figure was simply perfect, and she was determined to have it. Li Xiandao said calmly, "Wait a moment, Shao Qi will bring the things and then he can help you solve the problem." Huang Zhou nodded excitedly and said, "I'm not in a hurry." Li Xiandao's lips curled up beneath his mask, as if asking, "No rush." Who would believe that? Finding something to sit on is not even an adequate description of Huang Zhou's current state. It was as if there were nails under her buttocks, and sitting down would prick her buttocks, but faced with Li Xiandao's cold gaze, she had no choice but to sit down. "I'm so anxious." Li Xiandao saw it all, but did not comfort her. Words are futile at this point. Huang Zhou'er wouldn't listen to anyone. The most beautiful words in the world couldn't compare to Xiao Qi's steps as she carried the things over. Da. Under Huang Zhou'er's eagerly awaiting gaze, Xiao Qi walked over carrying a jade box. With a whoosh, Huang Zhou'er stood up, looking around excitedly, her round face full of excitement, unable to control herself at all. Xiao Qi smiled gently at her and said softly, "Don't be nervous, Master will help you get better." Huang Zhou'er nodded excitedly, watching Xiao Qi hand the jade box to Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao stood up, took the jade box, and walked to Huang Zhou'er. "Sit down," Li Xiandao said calmly. Huang Zhou'er sat down decisively, her fat undulating in waves. Li Xiandao reached out and twirled his hand above her head, saying, "Close your eyes." Huang Zhou'er was very obedient, closing her eyes, but her fists were clenched tightly. She was filled with excitement, worry, fear, disappointment, and a mix of emotions. Li Xiandao reached out and unleashed a burst of true energy, pouring it into Huang Zhou'er's sea of consciousness, instantly knocking her unconscious. "Is it necessary to make her unconscious?" Xiao Qi asked. "No," Li Xiandao replied. Then, Xiao Qi looked at Li Xiandao in confusion. "I was afraid she would get too excited and distract me, so I knocked her unconscious. When I woke up, everything was fine," Li Xiandao said calmly. Xiao Qi looked at Li Xiandao speechlessly. Li Xiandao took out the divine soul of the goddess of light. This was separated from the divine essence of Tian Guangming. Tian Guangming refused to merge with it, did not want to become a woman, and did not want to squat down to urinate, so Li Xiandao separated the divine soul of the goddess of light. "I thought I wouldn't need to use the goddess of light's soul again. But it seems that it still came in handy now." The goddess of light awoke from her dazed state and upon seeing Li Xiandao, immediately pleaded, "I was wrong, my lord. Please don't lock me up anymore. I'm willing to be your slave." The once proud goddess of light has now begun to lament the hardships of life, and the angels are sighing. "I can give you a chance to merge with this woman. You are both incomplete people. After you are complete, you can become a normal person," Li Xiandao said. "With me as the master?" The goddess of light's eyes lit up. Li Xiandao chuckled and said, "Do you think that's possible?" "Impossible." The goddess of light stated the answer bluntly. "With you as the assistant and her as the master, if she's willing to let you out from time to time, you should be thanking heaven and earth," Li Xiandao said calmly, reaching out and slapping the goddess of light's soul directly into Huang Zhou'er's sea of consciousness with a boom. Then, Li Xiandao used the power of the heaven and earth bank to begin facilitating the fusion of the two. In Huang Zhou'er's sea of consciousness, she stood alone, looking at the goddess of light, and asked, "Are you the divine soul that my master gave me?" The goddess of light nodded helplessly and said, "I have come to replenish your lost divine soul." "You have your own consciousness?" Huang Zhou'er asked curiously. "That's right, I have my own consciousness. I want to ask you for something. If you agree, I will willingly merge with you," the goddess of light said solemnly. "What is it?" Huang Zhou'er asked. "After we merge and you grow stronger, help me beat someone up badly," the goddess of light said through gritted teeth. "Who are you going to beat up?" Huang Zhou'er asked curiously. "A despicable, shameless, vile, despicable, and utterly shameless villain, rejected by both gods and men." The goddess of light gritted her teeth, wishing she could tear this person in her mouth to pieces, burn his body, and mix his ashes with rice. This is true hatred to the core. "Who exactly is it?" Huang Zhou'er asked helplessly. "Heavenly Light," the goddess of light said coldly. "Where is he? How did he offend you?" Huang Zhou'er asked curiously. "Right here in the Heaven and Earth Bank. He became a subordinate of the owner of the Heaven and Earth Bank, just like you. So I only asked you to beat him up, not to kill him. As for how he offended me, I asked him to merge with my soul and memories, but he refused. He actually seized my divine essence, kicked me out, and put me in a dark room. He deserves to die. So tell me, do you agree or not? The goddess of light said bitterly. I promise you, as long as I can beat Tian Guangming, I will definitely give him a good beating, Huang Zhou'er said firmly. All right, let's merge. The goddess of light was also decisive, knowing that if she didn't cooperate, the consequence would be being confined to the dark room, an endless dark room, with no idea when she would have such an opportunity again. Rumble. The two began to merge and complete their souls. Xiandao watched the whole process and scared. Tian Guangming now has a big enemy. Huang Zhou'er is a peerless genius who has returned to his ancestors. He is going to be beaten. Chapter 300 Another Treasure Vault Looted. Part 4. Time passed second by second, and after an hour, Huang Zhou'er's fusion finally came to an end. She opened her eyes and looked at the world, so clearly. Looking at her body, every cell was moving, incredibly active. She no longer had that feeling of being out of control. She had complete control over her body. Huang Zhou'er burst into tears of excitement. Screaming at the top of my lungs. She cried out all the grievances and resentment she had accumulated over the years. Outside the trading hall, Xiandao and Shao Qi stood side by side. Shao Qi smiled and said, hearing those excited cries, don't you feel a great sense of accomplishment? Xiandao laughed and said, you're talking about a sense of accomplishment with a businessman? Shao Qi asked with a smile, what's wrong? Can't a businessman not feel a sense of accomplishment? It seems like it could be possible. Xiandao thought for a moment and said, you can be a shrewd businessman, but you should still feel a sense of accomplishment. At least you saved her, didn't you? Shao Qi said with emotion. Yes, I saved her. Although she will have to serve me from now on, without my help, she would have really died of depression. Xiandao nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. As Xiandao and Shao Qi were talking, the crying in the main hall subsided. Huang Zhou'er wiped away her tears, came out, and knelt down directly before Xiandao in excitement. Thank you for saving my life, master. From now on, I will be your most loyal subordinate, Huang Zhou'er said firmly. If there were a loyalty rating, out of 100, she would be 100 right now. When she was at her most desperate, darkest, and most powerless, it was Xiandao who pulled her out of the abyss. Even if she paid for it with her whole life, so what? Reach out to those in purgatory, give them a ray of light, and they will remember that light for the rest of their lives. Only when one is in boundless darkness will one yearn for eternal light. Those who surrender to darkness will eventually disappear into darkness. Get up. Just serve me well from now on, Xiandao said, standing with his hands behind his back. Thank you, master. Huang Zhou'er stood up and looked at Xian with gratitude. Now that you can control your body and will no longer be in a daze and act crazy, your cultivation should improve rapidly, Xiandao said. I'm confident I can break through to the cave heaven realm within a month. Huang Zhou'er boasted. She was only at the peak of the human immortal realm, yet she dared to say that she would cross the legendary 33 steps and the 10th cave heaven realm within a month and enter the next realm. Xiandao still believed it. Nothing more. Because Huang Zhou'er's bloodline was too rich. From the age of 6 to the age of 18, over the past 12 years, the total time spent on spiritual practice has not even amounted to half a year. Despite these intermittent efforts, she still managed to cultivate to the level of a human immortal. Even with the best environment and the most abundant spiritual energy in Hanuishan, her speed was still astonishing. It's because of the bloodline in her body. Phoenix blood. In short, the direct bloodline of the original Phoenix. Among the dragon race, there are ancient dragons. Among the Phoenix race, there are primordial phoenixes. Those are the truly powerful beings that can destroy the heavens and the earth, and roam the 9 heavens, 10 earths, and the immortal realm. The original Phoenix has been missing in the heavens for a long time, so its bloodline has long since disappeared. Huang Zhou'er has the direct bloodline of the original Phoenix, so you can imagine how terrifying she is. Xiandao's previous concern for Tian Guangming was not a deliberate attempt to tease him. He truly felt sorry for Tian Guangming, and once Huang Zhou'er began her cultivation, she would inevitably receive a severe beating. Since you're so confident, I'll give you a task now, Xiandao said calmly. Master, please give your orders. Huang Zhou immediately listened respectfully. After returning to Honyue Heaven, help me collect 10,000 top-grade spiritual dragon veins. You can collect as many as you want, Xiandao instructed. Yes, ma'am. Huang Zhou kept it in mind. Also, I've sent a donkey and Qingling, the last of the 10 tigers of the Qing family, to search for spiritual energy dragon veins in the cold moon heaven. If they encounter one, give them a hand, Xiandao instructed. Huang Zhou kept it in mind, nodded, and said, Master, please rest assured, Huang Zhou will do her best to complete your mission. Okay, let's go back. Xiandao nodded in satisfaction. Then with a flick of his sleeve, an invisible force erased Huang Zhou from the heaven and earth bank. Xiaoqi, would you like to have dinner together again? Xiandao invited Xiaoqi. Xiaoqi suddenly remembered something, covered her mouth and chuckled. Shall we continue eating fried rice? Xiandao laughed heartily, took off his mask, and said, I also made the fried rice myself. I wonder if Miss Xiaoqi would do me the honor. Xiaoqi smiled gently and said, Please eat a little bit, considering how hard you've worked. The Golden family's territory, the Golden Mountains. Huang Zhou returned to her own territory. There was a cave, dozens of meters deep, and a small patch of sky could be seen when you looked up. The cave was very damp, with mud mixed with water, and it was filthy. There was only a small bed on the side. Huang Zhou has been imprisoned here for 3 years. 3 years ago, some in the family wanted to kill her to prevent her from disgracing the Golden family, some wanted to drive her away and let her fend for herself, and some wanted to extract her blood for research. In the end, it was the clan leader who gave the order to imprison Huang Zhou in this cave and forbid her from leaving. Out of sight, out of mind. If no one sees Huang Zhou, people won't be annoyed or feel sorry for her. Over time, everyone forgot about Huang Zhou. Occasionally, 1 or 2 people would remember her and come over to drop some food. They kept her as a pet. Huang Zhou watched all of this and gave a mocking smile. She didn't blame the Golden family. It's only human nature. People can be good or bad. She just hadn't met any good people yet. Similarly, she had no feelings whatsoever for the Golden family. To live in a cave like this and still have feelings for the Golden family is truly insane. I remember there are quite a few spiritual dragon veins within the Golden family, right? Huang Zhou's eyes suddenly lit up. Before leaving the Golden family, she planned to plunder her master's property. Like Qingling, she was also an unappreciated member of the Golden family. Even if she goes out now, no one cares. Everyone just thinks that her recovery is temporary and that she will go crazy again after a while. So she completely replicated Qingling's path, went to the Golden family's treasury, and then used the concentration of her bloodline to open the Golden family's treasury. They went in and looted everything. The Golden family's treasury was left unguarded. They used a bloodline concentration activation method. If the bloodline concentration is not high enough, this treasure trove cannot be opened. Then, the treasure vault that required the 7 bigwigs of the Golden family to join forces to open has now been opened by Huang Zhou alone. They easily walked in, took all the treasures, looted everything, and helped Xiandao obtain 1,000 top-grade spiritual dragon veins. Xiandao was having dinner with Xiaoqi at the Chendi money house when he received this news, which made him happy and brought him closer to Xiaoqi.